"What the hell? I've sent you $2,500 every damn month," I said in front of my new wife. And everyone, after I returned from deployment. When my daughter asked, "What are you talking about?" My lawyer showed her the bank transfer records from the past 5 years. My new wife and my stepchildren, faces turned bright red. I should have known the silence would be the loudest sound in the room. When I walked through the door of what used to be my house, the house I'd paid the mortgage on for 5 years while I was 7,000 miles away, nobody said, "Welcome home." Not my daughter Emma, who was 17 now and looked like a stranger wearing my ex-wife's face. Not my ex-wife Rachel, who stood in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed like I was a delivery driver who'd arrived at the wrong address. And certainly not the man standing next to her, his hand resting possessively on the counter I'd installed myself before my last deployment. The silence had texture. It had weight. It pressed against my chest like the desert heat I'd just left behind, like the blast waves that still woke me up at night, like the disappointment that had been building in my gut since Rachel's lawyer served me papers at my forward operating base 3 years ago. "Dad," Emma said finally, and the words sounded unfamiliar in her mouth, like she was trying out a foreign language she'd only read in books. I set my duffel bag down. 5 years of my life were in that bag. Everything I'd carried. Through Iraq and Afghanistan. Through sandstorms and rocket attacks. Through nights when I'd stare at photos of Emma and wonder if she even remembered what I looked like. The bag hit the floor with a thud that seemed too loud, too final. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, and I hated how my voice cracked on that second word. "You've grown." It was the wrong thing to say. I knew it the moment the words left my mouth. Of course she'd grown. She was 17. The last time I'd seen her in person, she'd been 12 years old, still young enough to run into my arms at the airport, still innocent enough to believe that Mommy and Daddy would figure it out. That was before the deployment that never seemed to end, before the marriage that dissolved via satellite phone and legal documents transmitted across time zones, before everything turned into this. "You didn't have to come," Rachel said. Her voice was cold, clinical. This was the same woman who used to leave notes in my uniform pockets before deployments, little love letters I'd find at random moments. "Come back to me. We're waiting." Now she looked at me like I was a bill collector. "We're doing fine without you." End quote. The man next to her shifted. He was tall, well-dressed, the kind of guy who probably worked in an office building downtown and never had to check a room for IEDs before he walked into it. His name was David. I'd learned from Emma's reluctant emails. He'd moved in 8 months ago, into my house, into my life, into the space I'd left behind when I chose duty over comfort. "I know you are," I said, and I meant it. The house looked good, better than when I'd left it, actually. New furniture, fresh paint, the kind of put-together aesthetic that said, "We've moved on, and we don't need you anymore." But that wasn't why I was here. "I just wanted to see Emma," I continued, looking at my daughter. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She was staring at her phone, at the floor, at anything but me. "It's been 2 years since my last leave." "You could have called more," Emma said quietly. I could have. She was right. The words sat in my throat like shrapnel. I could have called more. I could have found better Wi-Fi. I could have made it work. But every time I'd tried, every time I'd managed to connect through the spotty internet at base, the conversations had been stiff, awkward, full of pauses that said everything we couldn't. Emma asking about school and friends, me asking if she needed anything, both of us dancing around the real question. Why did you leave us? Except I hadn't left them. Not really. Not in the way she thought. "You're right," I said. "I'm sorry." Rachel made a sound half scoff, half laugh. "That's your solution to everything, isn't it, Mike? Sorry. Sorry I missed your birthday. Sorry I wasn't there for your dance recital. Sorry I chose the army over my family." Something in my chest tightened. I'd heard this speech before. Through the phone, through emails, through the kind of bitter arguments that happen when one person is trying to hold a marriage together from a war zone and the other person has already mentally checked out. But hearing it in person, in front of Emma, in front of this stranger who was living my life, it hit different. "I didn't choose the army over you," I said evenly. "I chose to serve my country. There's a difference." "Is there?" Rachel shot back. Because from where I'm standing, the result looks the same. You were gone. We were alone. And now you show up like we're supposed to? Just welcome you back with open arms? David put his hand on Rachel's shoulder. A small gesture, but it said everything. I'm here. He's not. You belong to me, now. I felt something ancient and primal stir in my chest. The territorial instinct. The provider's rage. The feeling that had kept me alive in firefights and ambushes. But I pushed it down. I'd learned control. I'd learned that not every battle needed to be fought. Not every insult needed a response. I'm not here to cause problems, I said. I just want to spend some time with my daughter. Your daughter? Rachel's voice pitched higher. Your daughter? You mean the girl you've barely seen in 5 years? The girl whose childhood you missed because you were too busy playing hero? Rachel, David said softly, but she shook him off. No, he needs to hear this. You don't get to just show up, Mike. You don't get to walk in here and pretend like you've been some kind of father to her. Where were you when she had her first heartbreak? Where were you when she learned to drive? Where were you for any of it? I looked at Emma. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face, and I wanted to go to her, to hold her like I used to when she was little and had nightmares. But there was a gulf between us now, wider than the Atlantic Ocean, deeper than any desert trench. I was sending money, I said quietly. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't a defense. It was just a fact. Every month, without fail. Rachel's face twisted. Money. Right. Because that's what matters. Because you think you can just buy your way back into her life? That's not what I meant. You know what? Rachel, cut me off. I think you should leave. This was a mistake. You should have called first. I did call, I said. 3 times. You never answered. Well, maybe that should have told you something. The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. This was an ambush. I recognized the terrain, the positioning. They'd wanted me to come, so they could make me feel exactly like this unwanted, unnecessary, like a ghost haunting a life that had moved on without me. But I'd survived worse. I'd survived ambushes where the enemy knew every move I'd make. I'd survived nights when I thought the mortars would never stop falling. I'd survived the kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by brothers in arms while your family falls apart on the other side of the world. I could survive this. I'm staying at the Marriott downtown, I said, pulling out my phone. Emma, if you want to have dinner tomorrow, just text me. No pressure. I'll be here for another week before I have to report back. Emma finally looked up. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged. Dad, it's okay, I said, even though it wasn't. Nothing about this was okay. Just think about it. I picked up my duffel bag. It felt heavier now, like it had absorbed all the disappointment in the room. I turned toward the door, toward escape, toward the rental car waiting outside. Mike, Rachel said, and something in her voice made me stop. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something else. Something that sounded almost like guilt. I didn't mean, yes, you did, I said without turning around. And that's fine. You've earned the right to be angry with me. But Emma hasn't. She's just caught in the middle of our mess. I left before anyone could respond. The autumn air hit me like a slap, cold and sharp after the stuffy warmth of the house. My house. Their house. I wasn't even sure anymore. The Marriott was sterile and anonymous, the kind of place that could be anywhere in America. I checked in, rode the elevator to the 3rd floor, and sat on the bed in my room, still in my uniform, still smelling like the plane, and the base, and the recycled air of a life that felt increasingly disconnected from reality. My phone buzzed. For a moment, hope flared, maybe Emma, maybe an apology, maybe something, but it was just a notification from my bank app. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. The transaction history loaded slowly, line after line of automated transfers. Every 15th of the month. Like clockwork. $2,500 to Rachel's account. Child support. plus extra. More than the court had ordered, actually. I'd wanted to make sure Emma had everything she needed. Clothes, activities, college fund, whatever. I'd wanted to prove that even if I couldn't be there physically, I was still providing, still caring, still being a father in the only way I knew how from 7,000 miles away. 5 years of transfers, 60 months, $150,000. I scrolled through them, remembering what I'd been doing when each payment went through. This one, pinned down in a building in Kandahar, wondering if I'd make it to see the next month. This one, 2 days after I'd watched a friend get hit by an IED, still processing the trauma. This one, the same day Rachel's lawyer sent the final divorce papers, making it official that my marriage was over. Every single month, without fail. Even when my own bank account was running low. Even when I'd had to eat ramen in my bunk to make ends meet. Even when the divorce was draining me dry with legal fees and settlement payments. Because Emma was my daughter. Because she deserved better than to suffer for her parents' failures. Because I'd promised myself that no matter what happened between Rachel and me, I'd never abandon my little girl. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Marcus, my lawyer. He was also a veteran. Someone who understood what it meant to serve, to sacrifice, to come home to a world that had kept spinning without you. How'd it go? He asked. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. About as well as expected. 3 dots. Appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. You going to tell them? That was the question, wasn't it? The question I'd been wrestling with since Marcus first showed me the documents 3 weeks ago, since I'd realized what had been happening, since the truth had crystallized into something I couldn't ignore anymore. Not yet, I typed back. Need to talk to Emma first. Without an audience. Good call. Let me know if you need anything. I set the phone down and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The acoustic tiles were water-stained, patterns that looked like continents I'd never visit, like the maps we'd studied before missions, like the randomness of a life that never goes the way you plan. I'd thought coming home would be the hard part. I'd thought the war zones were where the battles were. But sitting in this hotel room, my daughter refusing to look at me, my ex-wife treating me like an intruder, I realized that I'd been wrong. The hardest battles aren't fought with guns, they're fought with the truth, and sometimes the truth is a weapon more devastating than anything I'd carried overseas. Tomorrow, I'd try again with Emma. I'd take her to dinner, somewhere neutral, somewhere we could talk without Rachel's anger poisoning the air. I'd tell her about the deployments, about the nights I'd cried in my bunk missing her soccer games, about the photos I'd carried in my vest pocket during patrols. I'd try to bridge that gulf between us. And if that didn't work, if she still looked at me like a stranger, if she still believed the narrative that I'd abandoned them, then I'd show her the receipts. All of them. Because the truth was coming out, one way or another. And when it did, when the full picture finally emerged from the shadows Rachel had carefully constructed around it, everything was going to change. I just hoped Emma would still be speaking to me when the dust settled. Outside my window, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Somewhere out there, in a house I'd paid for, my daughter was going to sleep thinking her father was a deadbeat who'd chosen war over family. Somewhere out there, my ex-wife was probably congratulating herself on keeping me at arm's length, on protecting Emma from the father who'd abandoned them. And, somewhere out there, the truth was waiting, patient, inevitable, devastating. I closed my eyes and let the exhaustion take me, the kind of bone-deep weariness that comes from fighting battles on every front. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Tomorrow, I'd start fighting back. But tonight, I'd just be tired, just be human, just be a father who missed his daughter and wondered when everything had gone so wrong. The receipts could wait one more day. The coffee shop was neutral territory. That's what I told myself as I sat in the corner booth at 10 a.m., watching the door like I used to watch sector perimeters in Fallujah Alert, anxious, expecting contact that might not come. The cafe was one of those modern places with exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of establishment that charged $7 for a latte and called it artisanal. Emma had suggested it via text at 7:30 that morning, a message that had woken me from nightmares about missed birthdays and empty chairs at dinner tables. Can we meet? Just us. Mom doesn't need to know. 5 words that had felt like a lifeline. I'd arrived 30 minutes early, ordered a black coffee I didn't drink, and watched the steam curl up from the cup like smoke signals from a life I couldn't quite reach. My uniform was back at the hotel. Today I wore jeans and a flannel shirt, civilian clothes that felt like a costume after so many years in ACUs. I wanted Emma to see me as her father, not as Sergeant Mike Crawford, not as the soldier who'd chosen duty over dance recitals. Just Dad, if I could still claim that title. The door chimed. Emma walked in, and my breath caught. She looked so much like Rachel used to look before the bitterness, before the divorce, before I became the villain in the story of our marriage. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her mother's green eyes. My stubborn jaw. She was wearing a college sweatshirt, University of Michigan, and something about that detail stabbed at me. Had she chosen a school? Had anyone told me? Had I missed that conversation too? She saw me and hesitated. For a moment, I thought she might turn around, might decide this was a mistake, might choose the easier path of maintaining the distance that had calcified between us. But she didn't. She walked over, slowly, like she was approaching something dangerous. "Hi," she said. "Hi, sweetheart." I started to stand, uncertain of the protocol. Do I hug her? Shake her hand? Keep my distance like we're strangers negotiating a treaty? She solved the problem by sliding into the booth across from me, putting the table between us like a DMZ. "Thanks for coming," I said. "Yeah." She twisted her phone in her hands, not looking at me. "Mom thinks I'm at the library." The words landed like mortars. Mom thinks. Not I told Mom. Not Mom knows. We were already operating in secrets, in the shadows of a relationship that had to hide from the woman who'd once been my wife. "I won't keep you long," I said. I wanted to see you, really see you, talk to you without Mom freaking out." Emma finished. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Yeah, she was pretty intense yesterday. I'm sorry about that." "Don't apologize for her," I said. "She has every right to her feelings." Emma finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the question in her eyes. The same question that had haunted me since I'd walked through that door yesterday. Why weren't you there? A barista called out an order. Someone's laptop pinged with a notification. Life continued around us, normal and mundane, while we sat in our booth trying to figure out how to talk to each other. "I like your sweatshirt," I tried. "Michigan. That's a great school." "I got in early admission," she said. "I start in the fall." Pride swelled in my chest, mixed with the sharp pain of knowing I'd missed the application process, the acceptance letter, the celebration. "That's incredible, Emma. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks." She looked away again. "David helped me with the essays." David, the man in my house, the man who'd been there for the college applications while I was manning checkpoints and running patrols, the man who'd stepped into the space I'd left empty. "That was good of him," I managed. "He's been really great, actually." Emma's voice carried a defensive edge, like she was expecting me to challenge this. "He took me to visit campuses. He helped me prepare for interviews. He was there when I needed someone. And I wasn't." The words hung in the air between us, unspoken but deafening. I wrapped my hands around my coffee cup, feeling the heat against my palms, grounding myself. This was the moment. I could get defensive. I could explain about the missions, the deployments that got extended, the satellite internet that only worked when the stars aligned, the constant state of readiness that made it impossible to plan visits or guarantee phone calls. I could tell her about the guilt that ate at me every single day, about the photos I'd kept in my body armor, about the times I'd whispered goodnight to her picture because it was the only way I could say it. But she'd heard those excuses before, through the phone, through emails, through the same tired explanations that never quite bridged the gap between intention and presence. "I'm glad he was there for you," I said instead. "I'm glad you had someone." Emma blinked, surprised. Maybe she'd expected a fight. Maybe she'd been braced for me to defend myself, to make excuses, to diminish David's role in her life. "Really?" she asked. "Really?" I leaned forward. "Emma, I know I wasn't there. I know I missed things, important things. And I know that no amount of explaining or apologizing will give you back those moments. But I want you to know that every single day I was gone, I thought about you. You were the reason I did everything, the reason I woke up, the reason I came home. But you didn't come home, she said quietly. Not really. Even when you had leave, you only came for a few days. And after the divorce, you stopped coming at all. This was the narrative. This was what she believed, what she'd been told, what had crystallized into truth over years of absence and silence. And the worst part was, from her perspective, it made perfect sense. How was she supposed to know about the leave requests that got denied? About the missions that got extended at the last minute? About the complicated calculus of a military career during wartime? How was she supposed to know what Rachel hadn't told her? The last 2 years, I said carefully, I was stationed overseas permanently. My unit was deployed on a rotation that didn't allow for regular leave. I applied 7 times to come home. 7 times, Emma. They denied 6 of them. The 7th time, they gave me 2 weeks. I spent the first week in transit and debriefing. The second week, I flew here. Your mom said you were at a friend's house. She said you didn't want to see me. Emma's face changed. Something flickered there. Doubt, confusion, a crack in the certainty. She said you were too busy. She said you'd called and canceled. The coffee had gone cold. Outside, the autumn sun painted the street in golden light. The kind of perfect fall day that belonged in movies about families that weren't broken. Inside, in our corner booth, the truth was starting to seep through the carefully constructed walls of misunderstanding. I never canceled, sweetheart. Not once. Every chance I had to see you, I took it. Or at least, I tried to. But Mom said, Emma stopped. Her hands were shaking slightly. She wouldn't lie about that. Why would she lie? This was the moment. I could tell her now. I could pull out my phone and show her the email chains, the leave requests, the airline confirmations for flights I'd booked that never happened because Rachel had told me Emma didn't want to see me. I could crack open the entire edifice of lies that had been built around my absence. But if I did that now, Emma would shut down. She'd see it as an attack on her mother, as me trying to turn her against Rachel. She'd retreat into the defensive posture of a daughter protecting her primary parent. And I'd lose any chance of rebuilding our relationship. The truth would come out, but it had to come out right, at the right time, in a way that wouldn't destroy Emma in the process. People remember things differently when they're hurting, I said instead. The divorce was hard on everyone. Maybe your mom genuinely believed I was too busy. Maybe communication got crossed somewhere. It doesn't matter now. What matters is that we're here. Emma studied me, and I could see her mother's analytical mind at work, weighing my words, looking for the angle, trying to figure out what I was really saying. Do you hate her? She asked suddenly. Mom, for the divorce? No, I said, and I meant it. I don't hate your mother. I'm disappointed in some of her choices, sure, but hate? No. She was left alone to raise a teenager while I was half a world away. That's not the life she signed up for. I understand why she left. She said you cheated on her. The words hit like a sniper round, unexpected, precise, devastating. I felt my face go hot, anger flooding through me, not at Emma, but at Rachel, at this lie that had apparently become part of the official narrative. I never cheated on your mother, I said, and my voice came out harder than I intended. Never, not once. Not even close. She said there was a woman at your base, that you were spending time with her. That's why you stopped calling as much. I closed my eyes, trying to control my breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The techniques they taught us for staying calm under fire. For not making rash decisions when the adrenaline was screaming at you to act. There was a woman, I said slowly. Her name was Captain Lisa Henderson. She was our intelligence officer. We worked together on mission planning. That's all it was, Emma. Work. Professional colleagues doing our jobs. I never touched her. Never even thought about it. Your mother was the only woman I ever loved. Was. Emma caught the past tense. Was, is, It's complicated. I opened my eyes. Emma, you're old enough to understand this. Marriage is hard. Marriage during wartime is nearly impossible. Your mom and I, we tried. We really tried. But the distance, the fear, the loneliness on both sides, it wore us down. By the time the divorce happened, we were both exhausted. Looking for reasons. Looking for someone to blame. And she blamed you. And I let her, I said. Because what was I going to do? Fight it from Afghanistan? Drag her through a bitter custody battle while I was deployed? I signed the papers. I agreed to the terms. I let her have the house, the car, most of our savings. The only thing I fought for was you. Emma's eyes were wet now. You didn't fight very hard. You just left. I didn't leave. The army moved me. And the custody agreement your mother's lawyer drafted said I could have you for 2 weeks in the summer and alternating holidays. But every time I tried to arrange it, something came up on her end. You had a trip planned. You had a competition. You didn't feel well. There was always a reason. That's not Emma. Started, then stopped. I don't remember that. You wouldn't. You were 12, 13, 14. Your mom was your whole world. If she said Dad was busy, you believed her. Why wouldn't you? A tear rolled down Emma's cheek. She wiped it away angrily, like crying was admitting defeat. This is so messed up. Yeah, I agreed. It really is. We sat in silence. The cafe hummed around us with the sounds of normalcy, the espresso machine hissing, conversations about jobs and relationships, and mundane problems that felt impossibly distant. My daughter was 3 feet away from me, and the gulf between us felt like the entire ocean I'd crossed to get home. I wanted you at my graduation, Emma said suddenly. 8th grade. I kept thinking you'd surprise me, that you'd show up and be there, but you didn't. I tried, I said. I filed for emergency leave. They denied it because we were in the middle of an operation. I sent you a card and a gift. I never got them. Of course she didn't, because Rachel had controlled the mail, controlled the narrative, controlled every piece of information that passed between us, and I'd been too far away, too focused on staying alive, too trusting that my ex-wife wouldn't weaponize our daughter's love against me. Emma, I said, leaning forward, I need you to understand something. Everything I did, every mission, every patrol, every day I spent away from you. I did it because I thought I was providing for you. I thought I was being a good father by serving my country, by making sure you had security and stability and a future. I thought the sacrifice was worth it, because you'd grow up knowing your dad was a man who honored his commitments, who served something bigger than himself. But I just wanted you home, she whispered. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that I can't give you back those years. I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me. I'm sorry that the world is complicated, and being a good father sometimes means making impossible choices that leave everyone hurt. She was crying openly now, and I wanted to go to her, to hold her, like I used to when she was little. But I stayed in my seat, giving her space, letting her process. I don't know what to believe anymore, she said. Mom says one thing, you say another, and I don't know who's telling the truth. This was it, the opening. I could tell her now. I could say, I have proof. I have emails. I have bank records. I have everything documented. I could show her that I'd been sending money every month, more money than the court ordered, enough to cover everything she needed and more. I could prove that I'd been trying, that I'd been present in the only way I could be. But if I played that card now, Emma would have to choose. And children shouldn't have to choose between their parents, shouldn't have to sit in judgment, shouldn't have to be the arbiters of truth in their parents' wars. You don't have to believe anyone right now, I said instead. You can just sit with the confusion. You can take your time. I'm not going anywhere. You're leaving in a week. Physically, yes. But Emma, I'm not leaving you. Not anymore. When I get back to base, I'm putting in for a stateside transfer. I'm going to be closer. I'm going to be reachable. And when you go to Michigan, I'm going to come visit. If you'll let me. She looked up, hope and skepticism warring on her face. You promise? I promise, I said. And this time, I'll make sure nothing gets in the way. I'll send you my schedule. You'll know exactly when I'm available. No more miscommunications. No more missed connections. Just you and me, figuring this out. Emma nodded slowly. She pulled a napkin from the dispenser and wiped her eyes, smearing her makeup. She looked younger suddenly, vulnerable, like the little girl who used to wait for me at the airport with a handmade sign that said, "Welcome home, Daddy," in crayon. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. Why did you really come back now, after 2 years of nothing?" I took a breath. This was dangerous territory. The truth was that Marcus had called me 3 weeks ago with information that had changed everything. The truth was that I'd discovered something that had sent me to my commanding officer demanding immediate leave. The truth was that I was here because I couldn't wait any longer, because the anger and betrayal had reached a point where inaction felt like complicity. But I couldn't tell her that, not yet. "Because I missed you," I said, which was also true. Because I realized that time was running out. "You're going to college soon. You're going to build your own life. And if I didn't try to fix this now, I might lose you forever." Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face tightened. "It's Mom. She's asking where I am." "You should probably go," I said. "Yeah." She stood up, slinging her bag over her shoulder. She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see the war happening behind her eyes, loyalty to her mother versus this new uncertainty I'd introduced. The comfortable narrative versus the uncomfortable questions. "Dad?" she said. "Yeah?" "Thanks for meeting me. And for not making me choose." She left before I could respond, the door chiming behind her, taking all the warmth from the room with her. I sat alone in the booth, my cold coffee, a perfect metaphor for everything I'd lost. My phone was in my hand before I consciously reached for it. I opened my banking app and stared at the transfers again. 5 years, $150,000. Every month without fail, even when it hurt, even when my own account was running dry. Then I opened my email and found the folder I'd been avoiding, the one labeled Divorce, Emma. Inside were hundreds of messages. Leave requests denied. Emails to Rachel about visitation that went unanswered. Airline confirmations for trips that never happened because Emma was busy, school records I'd requested that were never sent, birthday presents I'd mailed with tracking numbers showing they'd been delivered but that Emma claimed she never received. A paper trail of absence that told a very different story than the one Rachel had been telling. Marcus was right. She needed to know. But more than that, the world needed to know. Because what Rachel had done wasn't just lying. It wasn't just parental alienation. It was theft. It was fraud. And it was time to stop protecting her from the consequences of her choices. I paid for the coffee I hadn't drunk and walked out into the autumn sunshine. The Marriott was 6 blocks away. I could walk it. I needed to walk it. Needed to move. Needed to do something other than sit in the rage that was building in my chest. Tomorrow, I'd make my move. Tomorrow, Emma would learn the truth. Tomorrow, the receipts would speak louder than any of Rachel's lies. But today, I'd given my daughter one more day of believing her mother was honest. One more day before her world shifted on its axis. It was the last gift I could give her before everything changed. Marcus Chen's law office was in one of those old downtown buildings that smelled like leather and wood polish, and decades of quiet battles fought with paper instead of bullets. I'd been here twice before, once when Rachel first filed for divorce, and once when we'd finalized the custody agreement that I'd signed while sitting in a plywood office at Bagram Air Base, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the pen. This visit felt different. This visit felt like loading ammunition. "You look like hell," Marcus said as I walked into his office at 8 a.m. the next morning. He was Vietnamese American, 45, with the kind of calm demeanor that came from seeing everything twice. He'd done 2 tours in Iraq as a JAG officer before going into private practice, which meant he understood things most civilian lawyers didn't: the weight of service, the cost of duty, the way the military could chew you up and spit you out with a thank you for your service and a handshake. "Didn't sleep much," I admitted, sinking into one of his client chairs. Through the window behind him, I could see the city waking up, people walking to work with coffee cups, completely unaware that their lives were simple and straightforward and not built on foundations of lies. "How'd it go with Emma?" Marcus asked, settling behind his desk. "About as well as you'd expect. She's confused, angry, doesn't know what to believe." I rubbed my face. Rachel told her, "I cheated. That's why I stopped calling, apparently. That's why the marriage fell apart." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Did you tell her the truth?" "Some of it. I told her I never cheated. I told her about the leave request that got denied. But I didn't show her the evidence yet. She's not ready." Marcus leaned forward, his lawyer face settling into place. "I know you want to protect her, but at some point, Emma needs to see what her mother's been doing. Not just for your sake, for hers. Because right now, she's operating on false information, and that's going to shape every decision she makes about your relationship." I knew he was right. I'd known it since he'd first called me 3 weeks ago, with the discovery that had brought me home. But knowing something intellectually and being ready to detonate a bomb in your daughter's life were two very different things. "Show me what you found," I said. "All of it." Marcus pulled a manila folder from his desk drawer. It was thick, stuffed with documents that represented months of investigation. He'd started digging after I'd mentioned in passing that I hadn't heard from Emma in over a year, despite sending emails and texts that went unanswered. "I should warn you," Marcus said. "This is worse than we initially thought." He opened the folder and spread documents across the desk, like a general laying out a battle plan. Bank statements, email printouts, legal documents, school records. Each piece of paper was a small truth, but together they formed a picture that made my stomach clench. "Let's start with the money," Marcus said, pulling out a highlighted bank statement. "You've been sending $2,500 per month for 5 years. That's $150,000 total. The court order specified $1,800 per month in child support. You've been sending an extra $700 monthly, no questions asked." "I wanted to make sure Emma had everything she needed," I said. "Her mother and I might have had our problems, but Emma didn't deserve to suffer for it." Noble. But here's the interesting part. Marcus pulled out another document, a printout from what looked like a forum or blog. Rachel has been very active on a divorced mother's support group online, under a pseudonym, obviously, but I was able to confirm it's her through cross-referencing details. And in this forum, she's repeatedly claimed that you've been sending barely anything, that she's been struggling to make ends meet, that she's had to pick up extra work to cover Emma's expenses because her deadbeat ex-husband abandoned them. The words swam before my eyes. I knew Rachel was angry. I knew she resented my absence. But this was something else entirely. "There's more," Marcus continued, and his voice had gone quiet in the way it did when he was about to deliver bad news. 3 years ago, Emma needed braces. Do you remember getting any information about that? I searched my memory. No. I knew she had some dental work done, but Rachel said insurance covered it. It didn't. The orthodontic work cost $8,000 over 2 years. Rachel set up a GoFundMe page for it. Marcus turned his laptop around so I could see the screen. "She told everyone who donated that you refused to help pay for it, that you'd cut off support, that Emma was suffering because her father didn't care enough to help with her medical needs." The GoFundMe page was still live. I could see the photos of Emma, younger, with crooked teeth. I could see Rachel's description. "My ex-husband has decided his new life is more important than his daughter's health. Emma needs braces, but he's refused to contribute a single dollar. Any help would be appreciated during this difficult time." The page had raised $6,400. 63 donors, most of them people I recognized. Our old neighbors, friends from before the deployment, people from Rachel's church. All of them believing that I'd abandoned my daughter, that I'd refused to help with something as basic as dental care. All of them never knowing that I'd been sending $700 extra every month specifically for things like this. More than enough to cover braces, activities, whatever Emma needed. "She lied," I said, and my voice sounded distant, disconnected. "She took money from people under false pretenses. Technically, it's fraud," Marcus said. "But that's not even the worst part." I looked at him. "There's worse?" Marcus pulled out a stack of papers clipped together. These are Emma's school records. I had to work some connections to get them, so don't ask me how. But look at the address listed for parental contact. I scanned the document. Under Mother, Rachel Crawford was the address of my old house. Under Father, Michael Crawford, was a P.O. box in Nevada. I don't have a P.O. box in Nevada, I said. I know. I checked. It doesn't exist. Or rather, it exists, but it's not registered to you. Rachel created a fake address for you so that any school correspondence meant for you would go nowhere. Report cards, permission slips, parent-teacher conference notifications, none of it ever reached you. The implications settled over me like a dust storm. Every time I'd asked Rachel for Emma's school information, she'd said she'd send it. Every time I'd asked to be included in parent-teacher conferences, she'd said the school didn't allow remote participation. Every time I'd tried to stay connected to Emma's education, there'd been a wall, and now I understood why. Rachel hadn't just been keeping me at a distance. She'd been systematically erasing me from Emma's life. There's also this, Marcus said, pulling out printed emails. These are from Emma's school counselor to the email address Rachel provided for you, the fake one she set up. There are 17 emails over the past 3 years. Notifications about Emma's academic struggles, concerns about her emotional well-being, requests for both parents to come in for meetings about Emma's anxiety and depression. My hands were shaking as I took the printouts. I read through them, each one a knife in my chest. Emma had been struggling. She'd been in counseling. She'd had panic attacks before exams. She'd written an essay for English class about abandonment that had worried her teacher enough to flag it for the counselor. And I'd known none of it, because Rachel had made sure I wouldn't. How did you get these? I asked. The school counselor is a veteran. Air Force? When I explained the situation that a deployed soldier was being kept in the dark about his daughter's well-being, she felt it was important enough to override the privacy protocols. Technically, she could get in trouble for this, but she said some things are more important than covering your ass. I set the emails down carefully, afraid that if I held them any tighter, they'd disintegrate. Rachel told me Emma was fine. Every time I asked, she said Emma was doing great. Happy, healthy, thriving. Emma wasn't fine, and Rachel knew it, but she couldn't admit that, because then she'd have to admit that maybe Emma needed both parents, that maybe pushing you out of her life wasn't actually helping. The rage I'd been keeping controlled, keeping buried, keeping professional, started to bubble up. This wasn't just about lies anymore. This wasn't just about hurt feelings or wounded pride. This was about my daughter suffering while I was kept deliberately, maliciously ignorant. I could have helped, I said. If I'd known she was struggling, I could have called more. I could have... You couldn't have done anything, Marcus interrupted. That's the point. Rachel made sure you couldn't. Because if you'd been able to help, if you'd been able to be there for Emma in any meaningful way, then Rachel's narrative would have fallen apart. She needed you to be the villain. She needed you to be absent and uncaring, because that made her the hero of the story. I stood up, needing to move, needing to do something with the energy coursing through me. I walked to the window and stared out at the street below. Normal people living normal lives, and here I was discovering that the past 5 years had been built on a lie so comprehensive, so deliberate, that it had its own architecture. What's my legal standing here, I asked. For the fraud? The fake GoFundMe? Marcus considered. Potentially criminal, but hard to prove intent. She could claim she genuinely believed you weren't contributing enough, that the extra money you sent wasn't specifically earmarked for things like braces. But I have the bank statement showing I sent more than the court ordered. Yes, which destroys her credibility, but doesn't necessarily prove criminal intent. A good lawyer could argue she was emotionally distraught, operating under genuine belief, etc. Marcus paused. However, the parental alienation keeping you from school records, creating fake contact information, telling Emma you didn't want to see her when you were actively trying to arrange visits, that's different. That's a pattern of behavior designed to damage your relationship with your daughter. And courts take that very seriously, especially when one parent is military and has limited ability to fight back. So what do? Marcus pulled out another document, this one crisp and official-looking. I've drafted a motion to modify custody. Given what we've found, given the systematic alienation, given your upcoming stateside transfer, we have a strong case for joint custody. Real joint custody, not the bullshit arrangement where you get 2 weeks a year if the stars align. I turned away from the window. Emma's 17. She's going to college in 9 months. What's the point of fighting for custody now? The point, Marcus said carefully, is that Rachel needs to face consequences for what she's done, not because you're vindictive, but because if she doesn't, she'll keep doing it. She'll poison Emma against you in new ways. She'll find ways to insert herself between you and your daughter, even when Emma's an adult. And Emma needs to know the truth, Mike. She needs to understand what really happened, so she can make informed decisions about her relationship with both of you. He was right. I knew he was right. But God, the thought of putting Emma through a custody battle, of making her choose, of exposing all of this ugliness. There's something else you should see, Marcus said. His voice had changed, gone softer. I wasn't sure if I should show you this, but I think you need to know the full scope. He pulled out his phone and opened Facebook, navigating to a page. This is Rachel's profile. It's mostly private, but her timeline photos are public. He handed me the phone. The first photo was from 2 months ago. Rachel, David, and Emma at what looked like a nice restaurant. Everyone was dressed up, smiling. The caption read, "Celebrating our family. So grateful for this man who stepped up when someone else stepped away. Number blessed. Number real father. Number family." The comments were full of people congratulating them, praising David, making sympathetic noises about how hard it must have been for Rachel. A few people explicitly mentioned me, good riddance to deadbeats, and Emma's better off without him, and she deserves a real father figure. I scrolled further. More photos. David at Emma's school events. David helping her move into her dorm for a college preview weekend. David teaching her to drive. All the moments I'd missed, all the milestones I'd been kept from, documented and celebrated as proof that I didn't matter, that I'd been successfully replaced. And in every caption, in every comment Rachel made, there was the implication, Mike abandoned us. Mike doesn't care. David is the real father now. She's been building a narrative, Marcus said, a public one, and Emma's been living in it for years. Everyone Emma knows, her friends, her teachers, her extended family, they all believe this version of events. Which means, when you tell her the truth, she's not just going to be shocked. She's going to feel like her entire reality has been a lie. I handed the phone back, my hand steady despite the storm inside me. When do we file the motion? And I can file it today, but Marcus looked at me seriously. Once we do this, there's no going back. Rachel's going to fight dirty. She's going to try to make you look bad. She's going to tell Emma that you're attacking her, trying to take her away, being vindictive. You need to be prepared for it to get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. It's been ugly for 5 years. I just didn't know it. Marcus nodded slowly. Then there's one more thing we need to discuss. The money. What about it? You've been sending $2,500 a month. Rachel's been claiming poverty, taking donations, making you look like a deadbeat. But she's also been living pretty well. New car, regular vacations, based on her social media, home renovations. So where's the money going? The question hung in the air. I'd assumed the money was going to Emma, clothes, activities, college fund, whatever she needed. But if Rachel was claiming to be struggling, if she was taking donations for things like braces while I was sending hundreds extra every month, you think she's been using it for herself? I said. I think it's worth investigating. And I think when Emma sees that you've been sending money all along, more money than required, more money than most divorced fathers send, it's going to change her perspective significantly. I walked back to the desk and looked at the spread of evidence. Bank statements, emails, school records, social media posts. 5 years of deliberate, systematic deception, all documented, all provable, all waiting to detonate like an IED in the middle of the life Rachel had carefully constructed. Do it, I said. File the motion. Gather whatever else you need. I'm done protecting her from the consequences of her choices." "And Emma?" Marcus asked. "When are you going to tell her?" I thought about my daughter, sitting across from me in that coffee shop, confused and hurt and trying to figure out who to believe. I thought about her going home to Rachel, to David, to the comfortable lie she'd been living in. I thought about how much it was going to hurt when the truth came out. But I also thought about those emails from the school counselor, about Emma struggling with anxiety and depression, about her writing essays on abandonment, while I was sending money and emails and trying desperately to stay connected despite every obstacle Rachel put in my way. Emma deserved the truth, even if it hurt, especially because it hurt. "Tonight," I said, "I'm taking her to dinner, just the two of us, and I'm going to show her everything." Marcus started gathering the documents, making copies, organizing them into a folder I could take with me. "You're going to need to be gentle about this. Don't make it about attacking Rachel. Make it about showing Emma the facts and letting her draw her own conclusions." "I know." "And Mike?" Marcus looked up at me. "She might not believe you at first. She might get angry. She might choose to believe her mother anyway, because the alternative, accepting that she's been lied to for years, is too painful. I know that too. But you're doing it anyway. She's my daughter," I said simply. "And she deserves to know her father never abandoned her. That I was fighting to be there all along. That every single month, without fail, I was trying to take care of her the only way I could." Marcus handed me the folder. It was heavy with evidence, with truth, with the kind of ammunition that could destroy a carefully constructed false reality. "Good luck tonight." I took the folder and stood. Outside, the morning had given way to afternoon, the sun high and bright in a sky that had no idea everything was about to change. I had 8 hours until dinner with Emma. 8 hours to figure out how to tell my daughter that her mother had been lying to her for years. 8 hours to prepare for the moment when I finally stopped being the villain in someone else's story. I walked out of Marcus's office and into the autumn air, the folder under my arm like a briefcase full of grenades. Somewhere in this city, Rachel was probably congratulating herself on keeping me at arm's length for another day. Somewhere, Emma was probably in class, learning about calculus, or literature, or history, completely unaware that tonight, her own history was going to be rewritten. And somewhere in me, beneath the anger and the hurt and the exhaustion, there was a small spark of something that might have been hope. Because finally, the truth was going to come out. The receipts were ready. Now I just had to find the courage to show them to the person who mattered most. The restaurant was Emma's Choice, an Italian place near campus where she said the students hung out. It had exposed brick walls covered in local art, mismatched chairs, and the kind of worn charm that came from years of college kids celebrating pizza and cheap wine. Not where I would have chosen for this conversation, but maybe that was the point. Maybe Emma needed the safety of familiar territory for what was about to happen. I'd arrived early again. Couldn't help it. Military training had programmed punctuality into my DNA. But more than that, I needed time to prepare. Time to arrange the folder Marcus had given me, to organize my thoughts, to rehearse in my head how to destroy my daughter's understanding of her own history without destroying her in the process. The folder sat on the table next to me like an unexploded ordnance. Brown, innocent looking, full of enough truth to level everything Rachel had built. My phone buzzed. Running late. 10 minutes. 10 more minutes to second-guess myself. 10 more minutes to wonder if I was doing the right thing. 10 more minutes to imagine all the ways this could go wrong. Emma refusing to look at the evidence. Emma getting angry and leaving. Emma choosing to believe her mother anyway because the alternative was too painful. Emma deciding I was the kind of father who would fabricate documents just to make his ex-wife look bad. I ordered water and stared at the folder. There's a moment before every mission when you know you're about to step into something dangerous. Your training kicks in. Your senses sharpen. You run through the plan one more time, checking for flaws, looking for exits, preparing for the moment when everything goes sideways, because it always does. This felt like that. This felt like standing at the door of a building you know might have hostels inside, knowing you have to go in anyway. The difference was, this time the hostel might be my own daughter. Hey. I looked up. Emma stood next to the table, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes, and something about her expression was guarded, defensive. She knew this wasn't a casual dinner. She knew something was coming. Hey, sweetheart. I stood, and this time when I moved to hug her, she let me. Brief, stiff, but contact nonetheless. Progress. Thanks for coming. Yeah. She slid into the booth across from me, eyeing the folder. What's that? We'll get to it, I said. Order first. Whatever you want. My treat. Emma picked up the menu but didn't really look at it. I'm not that hungry. Emma. Mom knows I'm here, she interrupted. I told her. I was tired of lying about it. Something cold settled in my stomach. How'd she take it? About how you'd expect. She said you were trying to manipulate me, that you'd tell me things to turn me against her. Emma finally met my eyes. She said I should be careful. Of course, Rachel had said that. Of course, she'd preemptively poisoned the well, set up defenses, primed Emma to be skeptical of anything I said. It was a smart move, tactically. It meant Emma was sitting here with her guard up, ready to disbelieve me, ready to protect her mother from whatever attack she thought was coming, which meant I had to be even more careful about how I did this. A waitress appeared young, probably a student herself, with a nose ring and tired eyes that said she'd been on her feet too long. We ordered mechanically. Pizza for the table, Cokes, the kind of food you order when you're not really thinking about eating. When the waitress left, silence settled over us like fog. Emma was fidgeting with her napkin, tearing it into small pieces, not looking at me. I could see Rachel in her, the way she bit her lower lip when she was nervous, the way her hands needed something to do when she was uncomfortable. I'm not trying to turn you against your mother, I said quietly. Then what is this? Emma gestured at the folder. What's all this about? I took a breath. This was it. The moment. No going back after this. Before I show you anything, I need you to understand something. I love you. That's not conditional on what you believe about me or your mom. That doesn't change based on who's right or wrong about the past. You're my daughter, and I love you, and nothing I'm about to show you changes that. Emma's jaw tightened. You're scaring me. I know. I'm sorry. I put my hand on the folder but didn't open it yet. Your mother told you I've been sending barely any money, right? That she's been struggling financially because of me? Emma shifted. She said you send the child support the court makes you send. The minimum. Nothing extra. What if I told you that wasn't true? I'd say you were lying. But her voice wavered slightly, doubt creeping in. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document, a bank statement, highlighted, with every transfer clearly marked. I slid it across the table. This is my bank account. These are automatic transfers to your mother's account. Every 15th of the month. For 5 years. I watched her eyes scan the numbers. How much does it say? Emma's finger traced the highlighted lines. $2,500 each time. She looked up. I don't understand. The court ordered me to pay $1,800 per month in child support. I've been paying $2,500 every month. Without fail, that's $700 extra. Over 5 years, that's an extra $42,000 on top of the $108,000 in court-ordered support. Emma stared at the statement. I could see her mind working, calculating, trying to reconcile this with what she'd been told. Mom said you send $1,500. That's not what the records show. And Emma, I can prove every one of these transfers. Bank records don't lie. I can show you the routing numbers, the confirmation receipts, everything. She pushed the statement back toward me. Maybe she just didn't realize how much you were sending. Maybe she got confused. Maybe, I said, though we both knew that wasn't true. Let me show you something else. I pulled out the printed screenshots from the Divorced Mothers Forum, the ones where Rachel, using a pseudonym but identifiable through details, had complained about me sending barely anything, about struggling to make ends meet, about picking up extra work to cover Emma's expenses. Emma read them, and I watched the color drain from her face. "This is from 3 years ago," she whispered, "when I needed braces." "Tell me about the braces," I said gently. Emma's hands were shaking slightly. "They were expensive. Mom said insurance wouldn't cover them. She said she asked you for help, and you said no. She said you told her it wasn't your problem." I pulled out the GoFundMe page printout. "Did she show you this?" Emma took it. I watched her read through the description. My ex-husband refused to contribute a single dollar. Watched her see the list of donors, the sympathetic comments, the money raised under false pretenses. "I didn't know about this," Emma said. "She never showed me. She just said people from church were helping." "Look at the dates on this GoFundMe. Now look at the dates on my bank transfers." I laid them side by side. "I was sending you $2,500 every month, while your mother was telling people online and in your community that I'd abandoned you financially. Emma, that's $700 extra each month? That was specifically for things like braces, for your activities, for whatever you needed beyond basic expenses." Emma was crying now, silent tears that she tried to hide by looking down at the documents. "Why would she do that?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I wish I did." The waitress arrived with our pizza, read the room, and left quickly, without her usual friendly patter. The food sat untouched between us, cooling, irrelevant. "There's more," I said, hating myself for it, hating that I had to keep going, keep piling on evidence, keep dismantling the foundation of my daughter's understanding. "Do you remember me ever asking about your school, about your grades, your classes, anything?" "You never did," Emma said, and there was accusation in her voice. "You never seemed interested." I pulled out the school records, the ones showing the fake P.O. box address. "Your mother gave the school a false address for me. Any correspondence meant for me, report cards, parent-teacher conference notices, updates about your academic progress, all of it was sent to an address that doesn't exist. I was never supposed to receive any of it." Emma took the documents with shaking hands. I could see her finding her own name, seeing the parental contact information, seeing the address she knew wasn't real. "I asked your mother about school constantly," I continued. "Every time we talked, she always said everything was fine, that you were doing great, that there was nothing to worry about. I pulled out the emails from the school counselor. But you weren't fine, were you?" Emma read through the emails. I watched her face as she absorbed them, messages about her anxiety, her panic attacks, her essay about abandonment, requests for both parents to attend meetings that I was never told about. "I was struggling," she whispered. "I kept asking Mom why you didn't care, why you never called the school, never showed up for meetings, never seemed interested. She said you were too busy, that you'd made it clear you didn't want to be involved. I would have been there, Emma. If I'd known, if I'd been told, I would have called every day. I would have flown home. I would have done whatever it took." My voice cracked. "You were suffering, and I didn't know. And I didn't know because your mother made sure I wouldn't." Emma pushed the emails away like they were burning her. "This can't be right. She wouldn't. She's my mom. She loves me. Why would she do this?" I chose my words carefully. "I think your mom was very angry at me. Angry that I was gone. Angry about the deployments. Angry that our marriage fell apart. And I think she started to believe that if she could make me disappear from your life completely, it would be easier for everyone. Easier for her. Easier for you. Like I never existed." "But you exist," Emma said, and she sounded like a child suddenly, lost and confused. "You're my dad. I am. And I never stopped being your dad, even when your mother tried to make it seem like I had." I pulled out the last set of documents, the Facebook screenshots, the photos of David at all the events I'd missed, the captions about him being the real father, the comments celebrating my absence. Emma looked at them and closed her eyes. She posted those, all of them, She'd show them to me sometimes. Say how lucky we were to have David. How much better our lives were without you. The words hung there, and I felt something break inside me. Not anger anymore, just deep, overwhelming sadness for what had been lost, for what Rachel had stolen from both of us. I tried to be there, Emma. I tried so hard. I pulled out printed emails, ones I'd sent to Rachel asking about visits, asking for Emma's schedule, trying to coordinate leave time with her calendar. Emails that had gone unanswered, or had been responded to with excuses. Every time I had leave, I tried to arrange it. Every time I tried to see you, there was a reason why it wouldn't work. You were busy. You were sick. You didn't want to see me. She said you were the one canceling, Emma whispered. She said you'd call and say something came up, that you were too busy. I never canceled. Not once. Look, I showed her airline confirmations for flights I'd booked, itineraries for visits. That never happened. Emails to Rachel confirming dates that she'd agreed to, and then suddenly there was a conflict. I have all of it documented. 5 years of trying to see you, and 5 years of being told no. Emma was sobbing openly now. Other diners were glancing over, concerned, but I didn't care. My daughter was finally seeing the truth, and it was destroying her. And I hated that I was the one causing this pain, even though it was necessary, even though she deserved to know. Why? She choked out. Why would she do this to me? To us? I don't know, sweetheart. I really don't. Maybe she convinced herself it was for your own good. Maybe she was so angry at me that she couldn't separate that from what was best for you. Maybe she just... I stopped. I don't know, and I'm not sure it matters. What matters is that it happened, and you deserve to know the truth. Emma looked at the spread of documents covering our table. Bank statements, emails, school records, social media posts. A paper trail of deception so comprehensive, so deliberate, that there was no way to explain it away as mistakes or misunderstandings. I don't know what to do with this, she said. I don't know how to go. How am I supposed to go home? How am I supposed to look at her? This was the question I'd been dreading. Because Emma was 17, she lived with Rachel. She depended on Rachel for food, shelter, college support. I couldn't just blow up her life and leave her to deal with the fallout alone. You don't have to do anything right now, I said. You can sit with this, process it. You don't have to confront her tonight, or tomorrow, or ever if you don't want to. But you're going to, aren't you? Emma looked at me. You're going to do something about this. I thought about the custody motion Marcus was filing, about the legal battle that was coming, about the consequences Rachel was finally going to face for years of lies. I have to, I said. Not because I want revenge, but because this has to stop. Because if I don't stand up for myself now, if I don't fight for the truth, then your mother gets away with it. And maybe she does it again. Maybe she finds new ways to keep us apart. Maybe she poisons you against me so thoroughly that by the time you're in college, you don't want anything to do with me. I don't know if I want anything to do with either of you right now, Emma said, and the words were like bullets. You're telling me my entire childhood was a lie, that everything I believed about you, about Mom, about why our family fell apart, all of it was bullshit. Not all of it, I said. The deployments were real. The distance was real. The strain on the marriage was real. I wasn't a perfect husband or father, Emma. I made mistakes. I was gone too much. I prioritized my duty over my family in ways I regret. But I never abandoned you, and I never stopped trying to be your father. Emma wiped her eyes. Her makeup was ruined, her face blotchy and red. She looked destroyed, and I hated that I'd done this to her even though it was necessary, even though she deserved the truth. I need to go, she said suddenly, standing up. Emma, I can't be here right now. I can't look at this anymore. She grabbed her backpack. I need to think. Let me drive you, I said, standing. No, I'll walk. I need air. She looked at the documents still spread on the table. Can I take some of these? To look at later? Take all of it. I pushed the folder toward her. It's yours. Copies of everything. If you want to verify any of it, I can show you the originals. I can prove every word. Emma took the folder, holding it like it might bite her. Did you know, before you came home, did you know she was doing all this? Some of it. My lawyer discovered the GoFundMe and the school records 3 weeks ago. That's why I came home now. I couldn't wait anymore. 3 weeks, Emma repeated. You've known for 3 weeks that my mother was lying to me, and you waited until now to tell me. I wanted to tell you right. I wanted to make sure you were ready. I stopped. There was no good answer. I'm sorry. Maybe I should have told you sooner. Emma nodded, not forgiving, just acknowledging. She turned to leave, then stopped. Dad? Yeah? Thank you for telling me. Even though I hate knowing this. She looked at me, and in her eyes I could see the little girl she used to be. The one who'd believed I hung the moon. I don't know what happens next, but thank you for not keeping this from me. She left. The door chimed behind her, and I stood alone in a restaurant full of college kids, eating pizza and studying for exams, and living normal lives that didn't include having their reality shattered over Italian food. I sat back down. The pizza was cold. The evidence was gone, in Emma's hands now, where it belonged. And somewhere between showing my daughter the truth and watching her walk away, I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The battle had begun. And like all battles, there would be casualties. I just prayed Emma wouldn't be one of them. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. What the hell did you tell her? So Emma had gone home, had probably walked in crying, holding the folder, and Rachel had known immediately what had happened. I typed back, the truth. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, we need to talk. I looked at those 4 words and felt nothing but exhaustion. 5 years of lies. 5 years of fighting for scraps of my daughter's attention. 5 years of being painted as the villain in a story Rachel had written without my input. Yes, I typed back. We do. See you tomorrow. Bring your lawyer if you want. Mine will be there. I paid the bill, left a large tip for the waitress who'd had to witness our family drama, and walked out into the night. The air was cold, sharp, the kind of autumn evening that hinted at the winter coming. Somewhere in this city, Emma was trying to reconcile 5 years of lies with the truth I'd just given her. Somewhere, Rachel was panicking, trying to figure out how to control a narrative that was slipping out of her hands. And somewhere, Marcus was probably getting ready for the legal battle that was about to explode. But here, walking to my rental car, I felt a strange sense of peace. The truth was out. The receipts had been shown. And whatever happened next, at least Emma would know her father had never abandoned her. At least she'd know she'd been loved all along. Rachel's text came through at 6 a.m. My house, 9 a.m. Emma will be at school. Not our house, my house. Even in a text message, she was establishing ownership, drawing battle lines, claiming territory. I stared at those words in the dim light of my hotel room, already awake because sleep had become something other people did. People whose daughters weren't being used as weapons. People whose ex-wives hadn't spent 5 years constructing elaborate lies. I texted Marcus, meeting Rachel at 9, her house. Can you be there? His response came immediately. Already planned on it. Don't go alone. She'll try to control the narrative. He was right. Everything Rachel had done for the past 5 years had been about controlling the narrative. What Emma knew, what the community believed, what story got told about our marriage and its dissolution. This meeting would be her last chance to maintain that control before everything fell apart. I showered, shaved, put on my uniform. It was a deliberate choice. When Rachel saw me, I wanted her to remember who I was. Not just her ex-husband, not just the man she'd convinced herself was a deadbeat, but a soldier who'd served his country while she was at home rewriting history. The uniform was armor. The uniform was a reminder that I'd survived worse than her lies. The uniform was proof that I still had discipline, honor, principles she'd apparently discarded. Marcus picked me up at 8:30. He was wearing a suit, his lawyer armor. He carried a briefcase that I knew contained copies of everything we'd gathered, plus the custody motion he'd filed yesterday afternoon. Rachel wouldn't know about that yet. The court wouldn't serve her until Monday. But by the end of this meeting, she'd know we weren't playing games anymore. "How are you feeling?" Marcus asked, as we drove through the quiet suburban streets toward my old house. "Like I'm about to walk into an ambush," I said. "Good. That means you're prepared." He glanced at me. "Remember, stay calm. Don't let her bait you. Stick to facts. Don't make this personal." "It is personal. She tried to erase me from my daughter's life." "I know. But if you lose your temper, if you give her ammunition to paint you as aggressive or unstable, she'll use it. She needs you to be the bad guy. Don't give her what she needs." We pulled up to the house at 8:55. The lawn was immaculate. The flower beds were perfectly maintained. Rachel's car was in the driveway, a new BMW, I noticed. Interesting. For someone who'd been claiming financial hardship, David's truck was gone. Emma was presumably at school, safely away from whatever was about to happen. Rachel was waiting on the porch. She stood with her arms crossed, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married 15 years ago. She'd been beautiful, then still was, objectively. Dark hair, sharp features, the kind of presence that drew people to her. I'd fallen in love with her confidence, her certainty, the way she seemed to know exactly who she was and what she wanted. I'd just never realized that what she wanted was a man who would stay home. And when I couldn't be that man, when duty called and I answered, she decided to punish me for it. "I said come alone," Rachel said as we approached. "And I decided to bring my lawyer," I replied. Given the circumstances, it seemed prudent. Her jaw tightened. "This is about our family. We don't need lawyers." "We stopped being a family when you started lying to our daughter about me," I said evenly. "Now we're just two people with a legal dispute." Marcus stepped forward, extending his hand. "Mrs. Crawford, Marcus Chen. I'm representing Mike in some ongoing matters." Rachel didn't take his hand. "I know who you are, and it's Miss Morrison now. I took my maiden name back." Of course she had. Another way to erase me, to pretend I'd never existed, to rewrite herself as someone who'd never been married to a soldier. "Can we go inside?" I asked. "Or are we doing this on the porch for the neighbors to see?" Rachel's lips pressed into a thin line. She turned and walked into the house. Marcus and I followed. The interior was different from when I'd been here 3 days ago. Cleaner somehow. More staged. I realized Rachel had probably spent the morning preparing for this meeting the same way she'd prepared for every other battle, by controlling the environment, by making sure everything looked exactly how she wanted it to look. We sat in the living room. Rachel in the armchair, the one that had been mine once upon a time. Marcus and I on the couch. The positioning was deliberate. She wanted the higher ground, the single seat, the position of power. "I don't know what lies you told Emma," Rachel started, "but she came home hysterical last night, crying, confused. You had no right." "I had every right," I interrupted. "She's my daughter, and she deserved to know the truth." "Your truth," Rachel shot back. "Your version of events, twisted to make me look bad." "Bank statements aren't a version of events, Rachel. They're facts." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen toward her. 5 years of transfers. $2,500 every month. That's $150,000 total, more than the court ordered, more than most divorced fathers send. And you told Emma, you told everyone, that I was barely contributing. Rachel's face flushed. "The court ordered $1,800. That's what matters. The legal minimum. Anything extra was just what? Guilt money? Is that what you told yourself?" I leaned forward. "I sent extra because I wanted Emma to have everything she needed. Because I knew being deployed meant I couldn't be there physically, so I tried to make up for it financially. And you took that money and then told people I was a deadbeat." "You were a deadbeat!" Rachel's voice rose. "You were gone. You missed everything. You think money makes up for that?" "No," I said quietly. "Money doesn't make up for absence. But it's not nothing either. And you don't get to take my money and then tell our daughter I abandoned her financially. Marcus pulled out a document from his briefcase. Miss Morrison, I have a copy of the GoFundMe page you created for Emma's orthodontic work. The page where you claimed Mr. Crawford refused to contribute. Where you solicited donations from friends and family under false pretenses. Would you like to explain that? Rachel's face went pale. That was... I didn't think... You didn't think what? That anyone would find out? That Mike would ever see it? That Emma would discover you'd lied to the entire community about her father? Marcus's voice was calm, professional, deadly. Because that's fraud, Miss Morrison. Soliciting donations under false claims. Technically actionable. I was struggling. Rachel stood up, agitated. Do you have any idea what it's like to raise a teenager alone? To handle everything by myself while he was off playing soldier? Playing soldier? The words came out sharper than I intended. I felt Marcus's hand on my arm, warning me to stay calm. But something in me snapped. I was serving my country, Rachel. I was in a war zone. People were shooting at me. IEDs were going off. Friends were dying. And you call that playing? You chose it, she yelled. You chose the army over us, over me, over Emma. I chose to serve. There's a difference. Is there? Rachel's eyes were wet now, angry tears that she tried to blink away. Because from where I was standing, you were never there, never home, always gone. And I was left to handle everything. The house, the bills, Emma's school, her activities, her problems, everything. While you got to be the hero halfway around the world. And you think that was easy for me? I stood up too, facing her across the coffee table. You think I wanted to miss Emma's childhood? You think I enjoyed being gone? I did what I thought was right, what I thought was honorable. And yes, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have gotten out, come home, chosen differently. But I didn't abandon you. I didn't stop caring. I sent money. I called when I could. I tried to stay connected, despite impossible circumstances. You called once a month, if we were lucky, Rachel said. You missed birthdays. You missed holidays. You missed everything that mattered. Because you made it impossible. The words erupted from me. Every time I tried to arrange leave, you had an excuse. Every time I tried to coordinate visits, Emma was suddenly busy. Every time I asked about her school, you told me everything was fine when she was actually struggling with anxiety and depression, which I didn't know about because you gave the school a fake address for me. Rachel froze. You don't know that. Marcus pulled out another document. Actually, we do. School records showing a fraudulent P.O. box listed as Mr. Crawford's contact address, an address that doesn't exist. Which means every piece of correspondence meant for him, report cards, conference notifications, counselor emails, went nowhere. Deliberately. That was, Rachel sat back down, deflating. That was a mistake. I must have written down the wrong address. For 5 years, I said? You made the same mistake for 5 years? Come on, Rachel. Even you don't believe that. She looked up at me, and for the first time since I'd walked in, I saw something other than anger in her eyes. Fear, maybe. Or the realization that her carefully constructed narrative was crumbling around her. What do you want? She asked quietly. What is this really about? You want to take Emma from me? I want joint custody, I said. Real joint custody. Not the bullshit arrangement where I get 2 weeks a year if the stars align. I want to be involved in her life. I want to know what's happening with her school, her health, her future. I want to be her father, not just a name on a child support check. She's 17, Rachel said. She's going to college in 9 months. What's the point? The point is that I have a right to be her parent. The point is that you've spent 5 years systematically alienating me from her, and it has to stop. The point is that Emma deserves to have both her parents in her life, not just the one you decided was acceptable. Marcus leaned forward. Miss Morrison, I've filed a motion to modify custody. Given the evidence of parental alienation, the false addresses, the withheld information, the demonstrable pattern of keeping Mr. Crawford from his daughter, we have a strong case. We're not trying to take Emma away from you, but we are asking the court to enforce actual shared parenting." Rachel laughed, but it was a broken sound. "Shared parenting? With a man who's stationed overseas? How's that supposed to work?" "I've put in for a stateside transfer," I said. "It's been approved. I'll be at Fort Campbell in Kentucky starting next month. 4 hours from here. Close enough to be involved. Close enough to actually be present." Rachel's face changed. This was news to her. I'd only gotten the confirmation 2 days ago. Marcus had pulled some strings, called in some favors, made it happen faster than usual. One more piece falling into place. "You're transferring," she repeated. "You're coming back." "I'm coming back," I confirmed. "And I'm going to be part of Emma's life again, whether you like it or not." "She won't choose you," Rachel said, and there was something almost desperate in her voice. "After everything, after all the time you were gone, she won't choose you over me." "I'm not asking her to choose," I said. "That's what you never understood, Rachel. This isn't a competition. She shouldn't have to choose between her parents. She should get to have both of us." "But you made me the villain." Rachel stood up again, agitated. "You showed her those documents. You told her I lied. You made it look like I was deliberately keeping you away." "Because you were." I cut her off. "Rachel, you created a fake address so I wouldn't get school information. You told Emma I canceled visits when I never did. You posted on social media about what a deadbeat I was while taking my money every month. You solicited donations under false pretenses. You did everything in your power to erase me from Emma's life. And when I finally show her proof of all of that, you're mad at me for making you look bad?" "I was protecting her," Rachel's voice cracked. "I was protecting her from being hurt by you, from waiting for calls that never came, from hoping you'd show up and being disappointed when you didn't. I was protecting her from the pain of having a father who was never there." "By lying to her?" I asked. "By making her think I didn't care? By letting her grow up believing I abandoned her when I was sending money and emails and trying desperately to stay connected despite every obstacle you put in my way? That's not protection, Rachel. That's cruelty." She sank back into the chair, and suddenly she looked older, tired, defeated. "I was so angry," she said quietly. "When you deployed that last time, when you extended, when you chose the army over coming home, I was so angry I could barely breathe, and that anger, it just kept growing, until I convinced myself that you deserved it, that you deserved to be cut out, that Emma was better off without you." "Was she?" I asked. "Was she better off having anxiety attacks, writing essays about abandonment, struggling in school while I didn't know because you made sure I wouldn't?" Rachel closed her eyes. "I told myself she was fine, that we were fine, that we didn't need you. But you weren't fine, and she wasn't fine, and you knew it." I sat back down, suddenly exhausted. "Rachel, I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm not trying to take Emma away from you. But I need you to understand what you did. I need you to acknowledge it. Because until you do, until you admit that you deliberately kept me from my daughter, we can't move forward." "And if I don't acknowledge it?" Rachel asked. "If I fight the custody motion? If I tell the judge my side of the story?" Marcus spoke up. "Then we present the evidence. All of it. The fake addresses. The fraudulent GoFundMe. The bank statement showing Mr. Crawford sent more money than required while you claimed he was a deadbeat. The emails from the school counselor that he never received. The social media posts painting him as absent while he was trying to arrange visits. All of it goes before a judge. All of it becomes public record. All of it gets seen by Emma, by your friends, by everyone in your community who donated to that GoFundMe." Rachel's face crumbled. "You're going to ruin me." "No," I said. "You ruined yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth." We sat in silence. Outside, a car drove by. Somewhere in the neighborhood, someone was mowing their lawn, the normal sounds of a Saturday morning in suburbia. Inside, in the living room of the house I'd paid for, my ex-wife was finally understanding that actions had consequences. "What do you want from me?" Rachel asked finally. Specifically, what do you want? I want you to stop lying about me, I said. To Emma, to your friends, to anyone who will listen. I want you to acknowledge that I've been trying to be a father all along. I want you to agree to the custody modification without a fight. And I want you to understand that from now on, Emma gets to decide our relationship, not you. She's old enough to choose how much contact she wants with me, but she gets to make that choice based on truth, not on lies you've told her. And if I do all that? Rachel asked. If I agree, what happens to the GoFundMe? What happens to the fraud accusations? Marcus and I exchanged glances. We discussed this possibility that Rachel might try to negotiate, might offer concessions in exchange for not facing legal consequences. If you agree to joint custody, if you stop the parental alienation, if you're honest with Emma about what happened, then we don't pursue criminal charges for the GoFundMe, Marcus said. The custody modification proceeds without a fight. We keep the evidence between us. No public scandal, no criminal record. You get to maintain your dignity and your relationship with Emma. But if I fight? Rachel asked. Then everything comes out, I said simply. And Emma gets to see exactly what kind of person you've been for the past 5 years. Is that what you want? Do you want her to know that when given a choice between her relationship with me and your pride, you chose your pride? Rachel put her head in her hands. Her shoulders shook. I couldn't tell if she was crying or just trying to hold herself together. Part of me, the part that had loved her, once wanted to comfort her. But the larger part, the part that had seen the evidence of what she'd done, felt nothing but cold resolve. I need time, she said, to think about this, to talk to my lawyer. You have until Monday, Marcus said. That's when you'll be officially served with the custody motion. If you want to avoid a fight, if you want to handle this quietly, call me before then. We can draft an agreement. Make this easy on everyone, especially Emma. Rachel nodded without looking up. Get out, please. Just get out. We stood. Marcus gathered his documents. I looked around the living room one last time at the furniture I'd helped pick out, at the photos on the walls that didn't include me anymore, at the life Rachel had built in my absence. For what it's worth, I said at the door, I'm sorry it came to this. I wish we could have worked it out differently. But you didn't give me a choice. Rachel didn't respond. We left her sitting there, in the house I'd paid for, drowning in the consequences of 5 years of lies. In the car, Marcus and I sat in silence for a moment, before he started the engine. That went better than expected, he said finally. Did it? This is not everyone. She didn't throw anything. She didn't threaten you. She's considering the agreement. Yeah, I'd say that's a win. I looked back at the house. I just destroyed my ex-wife's life. No, Marcus said firmly. She destroyed it herself. You just held up a mirror. Maybe he was right. Maybe Rachel had made her own bed and now had to lie in it. Maybe this was justice, karma, consequences finally catching up. But sitting in that car, driving away from the house where my daughter had grown up, believing I didn't love her, it didn't feel like winning. It just felt like everyone had lost. Emma didn't call, didn't text, didn't reach out. 48 hours of silence that felt louder than any argument, any accusation, any confrontation. 48 hours of checking my phone every 10 minutes like a teenager waiting for a girl to text back, except this was my daughter and the stakes were infinitely higher. Sunday morning I sat in my hotel room staring at the ceiling, counting the water stains, trying not to think about what that silence meant. Was she processing? Was she angry at me for showing her the truth? Was Rachel working on her, reconstructing the narrative, finding ways to explain away the evidence? Or had she simply decided that both her parents were toxic and she was better off without either of us? Marcus had told me to give her space. She's 17, he'd said after the meeting with Rachel. Her entire understanding of her childhood just got turned upside down. She needs time to process. Don't push. But the not knowing was killing me. The not knowing felt like waiting for enemy contact. Like those patrols where you knew something was out there but couldn't see it yet, couldn't prepare for it, could only walk forward and hope you'd survive whatever was coming. I'd spent Saturday afternoon working out in the hotel gym until my muscles screamed. I'd spent Saturday night watching movies I didn't remember 5 minutes after they ended. I'd spent Sunday morning reading the same 3 pages of a book without comprehending a single word. The waiting was its own kind of combat. My phone buzzed at 11:30. I grabbed it so fast I nearly dropped it. "Can you pick me up? I don't want to be here right now." I was already reaching for my keys before I'd finished reading. "Where are you?" "Home. Mom's at church with David. She doesn't know I stayed behind. Be there in 10 minutes. I made it in 7, driving faster than I should have through Sunday morning suburban streets. Emma was waiting on the porch, wearing jeans and an oversized hoodie, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She had a backpack with her, the folder I'd given her visible at the top. She got in the car without speaking. I waited for her to say something, to give me some indication of what she was thinking, but she just stared out the window as I drove. "Where do you want to go?" I asked finally. "Anywhere. Just not here." I drove toward the park on the edge of town, the one with the walking trails and the lake. It was the same park where I'd taught Emma to ride a bike when she was 6, before the deployment started, before everything fell apart. I didn't know if she remembered. I didn't know if bringing her here would help or hurt. I parked near the water. Late October, sun filtered through bare trees, painting everything gold and amber. The kind of day that belonged in paintings, in memories, in lives that weren't this complicated. Emma got out and walked toward a bench by the lake. I followed, keeping a respectful distance, letting her control this interaction. She sat down and pulled the folder from her backpack, setting it between us like evidence at a trial. "I've read everything," she said. 5 times. I've checked the dates, cross-referenced things, looked up the addresses, verified the bank account numbers. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were red, exhausted, older than they'd been a week ago. "It's all true, isn't it?" "Yes." She lied to me. About everything. About the money. About you trying to visit. About why you weren't at my school events. Everything. "Yes." Emma's hands were shaking. "I called the school yesterday, pretended I needed to update contact information. They confirmed it, the P.O. box in Nevada that doesn't exist. They said they'd been sending mail there for years, and it always came back undeliverable. But Mom told them you were hard to reach because of your deployments, so they just stopped trying." I hadn't known that detail. That Rachel had given the school an explanation that seemed plausible enough that they'd stopped questioning it. Another layer of calculation. Another piece of the architecture of lies. "I'm sorry," I said. "You shouldn't have had to verify all this yourself. You should have been able to trust your mother." "I don't know what to trust anymore." Emma wiped at her eyes. "Yesterday morning before she left for church, she tried to explain. Said you were manipulating me. Said the bank statements were fake, that you doctored them somehow. Said the GoFundMe was just her reaching out for help and she didn't mean to lie, she was just confused about the amounts. Said the school address thing was an honest mistake." "Do you believe her?" "No." The word came out flat, certain, because I checked. "I called the bank myself, said I was helping you organize tax documents. They confirmed every transfer. I looked up the GoFundMe on the Internet Archive, found old versions, saw when she created it and what she wrote. I even called the orthodontist, asked about the payment records. He said you'd called twice during my treatment, trying to send money directly to his office, and Mom had told him not to accept it, said she'd handle it herself." This was news to me. I'd tried to pay for the braces directly when Rachel had mentioned them in passing during one of our rare phone conversations. She'd said she'd handle it, that she didn't want my guilt money. I'd assumed she was just being proud. I hadn't realized she was building a narrative. "You called the orthodontist," I repeated. Emma had spent her weekend doing detective work, fact-checking her own mother, trying to find some crack in the evidence that would let her keep believing the comfortable lie. And instead, she'd found more proof. "I called everyone I could think of," Emma said. "I even went through my email, the old account I had in middle school. Found messages from you, birthday wishes, good luck messages before tests, questions about my life. None of them answered. Mom said you never emailed, said you couldn't be bothered. But there they were, dozens of them, and I just I never saw them. She must have deleted them before I could read them. The casual cruelty of it stunned me. It wasn't enough for Rachel to keep me away. She'd had to make sure Emma never even knew I was trying to reach her. Every connection severed. Every bridge burned. Every possibility of relationship systematically destroyed. "How do you do that?" Emma asked, and her voice broke. "How do you lie to your own daughter for 5 years? How do you look at her every day and know you're keeping her from someone who loves her? How do you live with yourself?" "I don't know, sweetheart." I asked her this morning before she left. I asked her why. And you know what she said? Emma turned to look at me. She said she was protecting me. That you'd abandon us by choosing the army over us. And she was just making it easier by helping me let you go. She said it like she'd done me a favor. Like I should be grateful she systematically erased my father from my life. The anger in Emma's voice was new. This wasn't the confused 17-year-old from the coffee shop, or even the devastated girl from the Italian restaurant. This was someone who'd had time to process, to verify, to understand the full scope of what had been done to her. This was someone who'd been betrayed and was done making excuses for it. "What do you want to do?" I asked carefully. "I don't know. I can't go back there right now. I can't look at her. Every time I try to talk to her, she just keeps lying, keeps trying to make you the bad guy. Keeps acting like I'm being manipulated, instead of just finally seeing the truth." Emma pulled her knees to her chest. "David knows. I heard them talking last night. She told him everything about the documents, about you knowing, about the custody motion." "What did he say?" "He told her she should have been honest from the start. That lying was only going to make it worse. That I deserved to know the truth." Emma's voice got quieter. Then she screamed at him. Said he didn't understand. Said it was easy for him to judge, because he hadn't been left alone with a kid to raise. They fought for 2 hours. I think he slept in the guest room. So Rachel's relationship with David was fracturing too. The foundation of lies she'd built her new life on was crumbling, taking everything with it. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. "Emma," I said carefully, "I need you to know something. Whatever happens between your mother and me, whatever legal battles come next, whatever consequences she faces, none of that is your fault. You're not responsible for fixing this. You're not responsible for choosing sides. You're allowed to be angry at both of us." "I'm not angry at you," Emma said. "I'm angry at her. And I'm angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. For believing her when she said you didn't call. For thinking you just didn't care enough to show up. For all the times I defended her to my friends when they asked why my dad was never around. You were a kid. She was your mother. Of course you believed her. But I should have questioned it. Should have wondered why you'd send money every month if you really didn't care. Should have asked to see the emails you supposedly never sent. Should have," she stopped, "should have trusted you more than I trusted her." "No," I said firmly. "Don't do that. Don't rewrite your own history to make yourself the bad guy. You were 12 when the divorce happened. 13, 14, 15, 16 as this went on. You were a child whose mother was lying to her. That's not on you." Emma was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. I moved closer, put my arm around her shoulders. She leaned into me like she used to when she was little, and something in my chest cracked open grief for all the years we'd lost. Relief that maybe we could still salvage something. "I missed you," she whispered. "I missed you so much, and I thought you didn't miss me back." "I missed you every single day," I said. "Every deployment, every patrol, every moment you were the first thing I thought about when I woke up, and the last thing I thought about before I slept. I carried your picture in my vest. I read your emails over and over, even when they were just 1 or 2 sentences. You were the reason I kept going, Emma. Always." She sobbed against my shoulder, and I held her, letting her cry out 5 years of believing she wasn't wanted, wasn't worth coming home for, wasn't enough to make her father stay. When she finally pulled back, wiping her face on her hoodie sleeve, she said, "I want to live with you." The words hung in the air between us. I stared at her, not sure I'd heard correctly. "What?" "When you transfer to Kentucky, when you get stationed at Fort Campbell, I want to come with you." Emma spoke fast, like she was afraid I'd interrupt. I can finish high school there. I can apply to colleges from there. I can't stay with her anymore. I can't live in that house knowing she lied to me every day, knowing she kept you from me deliberately. I can't do it. My first instinct was to say yes, to grab this opportunity, this chance to finally be Emma's father in a real, daily way, to have breakfast together and help with homework, and be there for the small moments that made up a life. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not like this. Emma, I want that. More than anything. But you're 17. You have friends here, a school you know, a life you've built. Moving across state lines, starting over at a new high school for your senior year, that's huge. And if you do it now, while you're angry at your mother, you might regret it later. I won't regret it. You might. And more than that, if I take you to Kentucky now, your mother will fight me. She'll tell the court, I'm kidnapping you, manipulating you while you're emotional, taking advantage of the situation. It'll get ugly, Emma. Uglier than it already is. I don't care. But I do. I took her hands. I care about you having the best possible outcome here. And the best outcome isn't you running away from your mother in anger. It's you making a clear-headed decision about your future after you've had time to process all of this. Emma pulled her hands away. So you don't want me? That's not what I said. It's what it sounds like. I'm finally telling you I want to be with you, and you're telling me no. I'm not saying no. I'm saying not yet. I'm saying let's do this right. I leaned forward. Emma, I'm filing for joint custody. If the court agrees, and Marcus thinks they will given the evidence, then you'll have a real choice. You can spend time with me during the school year. You can come to Kentucky for weekends, for holidays, for however long you want. And when you graduate, when you go to college, you can decide for yourself how much contact you want with each of us. But it has to be your choice, made calmly, not a reaction to finding out your mother lied. It's not a reaction. It's what I want. Then it'll still be what you want in a month, after the dust settles. And if it is, we'll figure it out together. We'll make it work. I waited for her to look at me. But I won't be the parent who uses your anger at your mother to pull you away from her. That's what she did to me. Used your emotions. Used the situation. Used everything she could to create distance. I won't do the same thing back. Emma was quiet for a long time, staring out at the lake. Ducks were swimming in formation, oblivious to the human drama unfolding on the shore. You're a better person than she is, Emma said finally. I'm trying to be a better parent than I was. And part of that means not making this harder on you than it has to be. Everything's already hard. I know. And I'm sorry. But it will get easier. You'll process this. You'll figure out how you feel about both of us. And wherever you land, whatever you decide, I'll be there. Not halfway around the world. Not a stranger you see twice a year. There. Really there. Emma nodded slowly. You promise? You promise you're not going to disappear again? I promise. I'm done disappearing. I'm done being kept away. I'm going to be so present in your life that you'll get sick of me. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. I doubt that. Give it time. Wait until I'm calling every day asking about homework and boys and whether you're eating vegetables. You're going to be an annoying dad, aren't you? The most annoying. I have years of annoying dad behavior to catch up on. She laughed a small, broken sound, but a laugh nonetheless. Can we just stay here for a while? I don't want to go back yet. We can stay as long as you want. We sat on that bench for 2 hours, sometimes talking about school, about college, about her plans for the future, sometimes just sitting in silence, watching the lake, existing in the same space without the weight of lies between us. Emma told me about Michigan, about her plans to study psychology, about the friend group she'd built and the boyfriend she'd recently broken up with. She told me about the panic attacks she'd had during exams, about the counseling sessions her mother thought were helping but weren't, about the essay she'd written about abandonment that had gotten her teacher concerned. Can I read it? I asked. The essay? It's pretty brutal, she warned. I think I can handle it. She pulled out her phone and found it in her saved documents. I read it standing next to the bench, unable to sit still, unable to be comfortable while absorbing my daughter's pain transcribed into academic prose. It was about a girl whose father chose war over family. About the little ways absence creates holes in a life. The empty chair at dinner. The unopened presents with deployment stamps. The phone calls that never came. About learning to stop hoping, stop expecting, stop caring because caring hurt too much. It was devastating, and it was all based on lies Rachel had told her. "I'm sorry," I said when I finished. "I'm so sorry you felt this way. I'm sorry you thought you weren't enough to make me stay." "I know now that it wasn't true," Emma said. "But Dad, for a while there, it was true. Not the objective facts, but the truth I was living." And that's the part I don't know how to deal with. How do I reconcile 5 years of feeling abandoned with knowing now that I wasn't? How do I make sense of all that pain when it was based on lies? "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe you talk to a therapist, a real one your mother doesn't choose. Maybe you write about it. Maybe you just give yourself time to be angry and sad and confused until it starts to make sense. But Emma, that pain you felt, that was real, even if the reasons for it were false. You don't have to pretend it didn't matter." "Mom made me feel that pain," Emma said quietly. "On purpose. That's the part I can't get past. She knew I was hurting. She knew I missed you. And she just let me hurt because it served her narrative." "Yeah," I said. "That's the unforgivable part." My phone buzzed. "Where is Emma?" "She's not answering her phone." I showed Emma the text. "Do you want to go back?" "Not yet. But you should probably tell her I'm safe." I typed back, "She's with me. She's fine. I'll bring her home later." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "We need to talk about this." We already did. Emma's old enough to decide who she wants to spend time with. No response. I pocketed my phone. "She's going to be mad," Emma said. "Let her be mad. She doesn't get to control this anymore." We stayed at the park until the sun started sinking, until the gold light turned orange, then pink, then purple, until Emma said she was ready to face whatever came next. I drove her home slowly, taking the long way, giving her extra minutes before she had to walk back into that house. When I pulled up to the curb, Rachel was standing in the doorway. David's truck was still gone. Emma had been right. They'd fought, and he'd left. "You okay?" I asked Emma. "No, but I will be." She unbuckled her seatbelt. "Dad?" "Yeah? Thank you for showing me the truth, even though it hurt. Thank you for not letting me keep believing the lie." "Anytime, sweetheart." She grabbed her backpack, the folder of evidence still inside. Then she leaned over and hugged me, really hugged me, tight and fierce and full of 5 years of missing each other. "I love you," she said. "I love you too, so much." She got out and walked toward the house. Rachel said something I couldn't hear. Emma said something back. They both went inside, and the door closed behind them. I sat in my car for a long time, watching the house, making sure no one came running out, making sure Emma was okay. Eventually, I drove back to the hotel, back to the temporary life I'd built in this city that wasn't home anymore. But something had shifted. Emma knew the truth now. Emma had chosen to spend the day with me, had let me back in, had started to rebuild what Rachel had tried to destroy. It wasn't over. The custody battle was still coming. The confrontation with Rachel would continue. The healing would take time, years, probably. But for the first time in 5 years, I had hope. My daughter knew I loved her. My daughter knew I'd never abandoned her, and that was worth every battle still to come. Marcus called Monday morning at 7 a.m. I was already awake. Sleep had become something I did in shifts, never more than a few hours at a time. Old habits from deployment. Except now, the enemy wasn't insurgents. It was my own racing thoughts about Emma, about Rachel, about everything that was about to happen. Rachel's lawyer called me at 6:30, Marcus said without preamble. She wants to negotiate. I sat up in bed, fully alert. That was fast. She got served at 8 a.m. this morning. Her lawyer must have called her immediately. They want to meet today, this afternoon if possible. Marcus paused. Mike, she's scared. Her lawyer basically said she knows the evidence is damning and wants to avoid going to court. What are they offering? We don't know yet. But the fact that they're coming to the table at all, this quickly, tells me they understand how bad this looks for her. A judge seeing those bank statements, the fake address, the GoFundMe, Rachel would lose more than custody. She'd lose credibility as a parent entirely. I walked to the window. Monday morning traffic was building on the street below. People going to work, living normal lives, unaware that in hotel rooms and lawyers' offices, families were being dissected and reassembled like broken machinery. Set it up, I said. But Marcus, I want joint custody. Real joint custody. Not some token gesture where I get Emma for a weekend a month, 50-50 when I'm stateside. Full access to school records, medical information, everything. And I want Rachel to acknowledge what she did, in writing. The acknowledgement might be a sticking point, Marcus warned. Admitting to parental alienation in writing could be used against her in other contexts. She might fight that. Then we go to court and let a judge read her the riot act. Her choice. Understood. I'll set something up for 2 p.m. Can you be ready? I've been ready for 5 years. After Marcus hung up, I sat with my coffee and stared at my phone. No messages from Emma. I'd texted her last night after dropping her off. You okay? But she hadn't responded. I told myself she was processing, dealing with Rachel, trying to navigate the minefield of her home life. I told myself not to read into the silence, but the silence felt ominous. At noon, my phone finally buzzed, but it wasn't Emma. It was David. Can we talk? In person? It's about Emma. I stared at the message for a long moment. David, the man who'd been living in my house, stepping into my role, being the father figure while I was kept at a distance. Part of me wanted to tell him to go to hell. But another part, the part that remembered Emma saying he'd defended her to Rachel, that he'd told Rachel she should have been honest from the start, was curious. Where? Coffee shop, on Main Street. Hour? I'll be there. The coffee shop was different from the one where I'd met Emma. Smaller, darker, the kind of place that catered to remote workers and students rather than families. David was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, looking like he hadn't slept. He stood when he saw me, extended his hand. Thanks for meeting me. I shook it, firm grip, direct eye contact. Whatever I'd expected from the man who'd replaced me, it wasn't this. He looked defeated. We sat. An awkward silence settled between us. I'm leaving, David said finally. Moving out. I told Rachel yesterday that I couldn't do this anymore. I hadn't expected that. Because of the custody fight? Because of the lies. David leaned forward. I need you to understand something. When I met Rachel, when I started dating her, she told me you were a deadbeat. That you'd abandoned them. That you barely sent any support and never tried to see Emma. And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was this strong single mother raising a teenager alone. It was... He stopped. It was a compelling story, but it wasn't true. No. And I didn't know that until Emma came home Friday night with that folder. Until I saw the bank statements. Until Rachel tried to explain it away, and I realized she'd been lying to me too. Not just to you, not just to Emma, but to me. For 3 years, I sipped my coffee, letting him talk. I have 2 kids from my first marriage, David continued. Teenagers. They live with their mother in Michigan. I see them holidays, summer breaks, whenever I can. And you know what I did when Rachel told me about the custody arrangement with you? When she said you barely bothered to visit, I felt superior. I thought, what kind of father abandons his daughter like that? At least I make the effort with my kids. He laughed bitterly. Turns out I was dating someone who was actively preventing you from making that effort. She told Emma you were a good influence, I said. That you helped her with college applications, taught her to drive, were there when she needed someone. I was. But Mike, I was never trying to replace you.
Rachel made it seem like there was no you to replace, like you'd voluntarily checked out.
If I'd known, if I'd had any idea she was keeping you away on purpose, he shook his head, I wouldn't have been part of it.
Does Emma know you're leaving?
I told her yesterday. She's devastated.
Which makes this even worse, because I do care about her. I've known her for 3 years. I've been a part of her life, and now I'm another adult, abandoning her. Not knowing she's capable of that level of deception, I studied him, this man who'd been part of the machinery of my erasure. Willingly or not, he looked genuinely distressed, genuinely conflicted. And despite everything, despite the 3 years he'd spent in my place, I found I didn't hate him. Emma's stronger than you think, I said. She'll understand eventually. She might be hurt now, but she'll understand that you had to make a choice too. Will she? David looked at me. Because from where I'm sitting, every adult in her life has let her down. Her mother lied to her. Her father was kept away. And now, the guy she thought was stable, the guy she trusted, is leaving too. What does that teach her about relationships, about trust? It was a fair question. Emma was 17, watching her entire support system crumble around her. Even if she understood, intellectually, why David was leaving, emotionally, it was another abandonment. Another person choosing not to stay. The difference, I said carefully, is that you're leaving because of Rachel's choices, not because of Emma. You're not choosing to abandon her. You're choosing not to be complicit in her mother's lies anymore. Emma's smart. She'll see the distinction. I hope you're right. David pulled out his phone, showed me a text exchange with Emma. Messages from this morning. Emma asking him to reconsider, saying she understood why he was upset, but couldn't he stay anyway? Couldn't they work it out? David's responses were kind but firm. He couldn't be in a relationship built on lies, but he still cared about her, would still be available if she needed to talk. I told her she could call me any time, David said. That just because Rachel and I are over doesn't mean I disappear from her life. But I don't know if she believes that. Everyone says they'll stay in touch. Most people don't. Then be the person who does, I said. Check in with her. Ask about school. Remember her birthday. You don't have to be her stepfather to still be someone who cares about her. David nodded slowly. Can I ask you something? Sure. What are you going to do with Rachel? I mean, are you going to... He hesitated. Are you going to destroy her? Because you could. With the evidence you have, you could make sure everyone knows what she did. Her friends, her church, everyone who donated to that GoFundMe. You could ruin her reputation completely. I'd been asking myself the same question for days. The evidence Marcus had gathered was comprehensive enough to not just win a custody battle, but to socially obliterate Rachel. Every person who'd called me a deadbeat, every friend who'd sympathized with her struggles, every donor who'd given money thinking my daughter needed help I refused to provide, they could all know the truth. I could make Rachel face public consequences for private sins. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants everyone to know what she did, wants her to feel the same kind of isolation she forced on me. But she's still Emma's mother, David finished. Yeah, and destroying Rachel doesn't help Emma. It just makes Emma watch both her parents behave badly, makes her choose sides in a war neither of us should be fighting. That's more restrained than I'd be, David said. If someone had kept me from my kids for 5 years, if they'd lied and manipulated and stolen time, I can never get back. I don't know if I could be that measured. I'm not measured. I'm furious. But fury doesn't help Emma. And at the end of the day, she's the only person in this mess who matters. David stood, extending his hand again. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was part of keeping you away, even if I didn't know that's what I was doing. And I hope you and Emma can rebuild what Rachel tried to destroy. Thanks, I said, shaking his hand. And David, don't disappear on Emma. She's lost enough people. I won't, he promised. He left. I sat alone in the coffee shop, surrounded by the ambient noise of espresso machines and laptop keyboards, and wondered how many lives Rachel's lies had damaged. Not just mine, not just Emma's, but David's too, and probably others I didn't even know about. At 2 p.m., I was in Marcus's conference room. Rachel sat across from us with her lawyer, a woman named Patricia Hendricks, 50s, steel gray hair, the kind of attorney who'd seen every divorce trick in the book. She looked tired, like she'd spent the morning trying to convince her client that cooperation was better than combat. Rachel looked worse. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Her hands shook slightly as she placed them on the table. She wouldn't look at me. "Let's be clear about why we're here," Patricia started. "My client disputes the characterization of events presented in your motion. However, in the interest of Emma's well-being and to avoid protracted litigation, we're willing to discuss a custody modification." "Disputes which part?" Marcus asked mildly. "The bank statements showing Mr. Crawford sent more money than required? The school records with the fake address? The GoFundMe that solicited donations under false pretenses? Be specific." Patricia's jaw tightened. "The interpretation of those events. My client may have made some errors in judgment, but there was no malicious intent." "Bullshit," I said. The word came out harder than I intended. "Sorry, but no, we're not doing this. We're not sitting here pretending Rachel made innocent mistakes. She created a fake address. She told Emma I canceled visits when I didn't. She posted on social media calling me a deadbeat while cashing my checks. That's not errors in judgment. That's systematic, deliberate alienation." Rachel finally looked at me. Her eyes were wet. "I was angry," she said quietly. "You left us. You chose deployment over family. Over and over again. And I was so angry I couldn't see straight. So you decided to punish me by erasing me from Emma's life. I decided to protect her from being disappointed by you again and again. Except I wasn't disappointing her," I said. You were creating the disappointments by keeping me away and then blaming me for not being there. You manufactured the exact situation you claimed to be protecting her from." "That's enough," Patricia interjected. "This isn't productive. Let's focus on moving forward." Marcus pulled out a document. "Here's what we're proposing. Joint legal custody. Both parents have equal say in major decisions about Emma's education, health, and welfare. Physical custody splits 50-50 when Mr. Crawford is stateside, with flexibility for Emma's school schedule and activities. Mr. Crawford gets full access to all school records, medical information, and extracurricular communications. No more filtered information. No more gatekeeping." Patricia scanned the document. "This is reasonable. We can agree to this." "There's one more thing," Marcus said. "We need Miss Morrison to sign a statement acknowledging that she withheld information from Mr. Crawford and prevented contact between him and Emma. Not for legal action, this won't be filed with the court unless there's a future violation, but for Emma's sake, she needs to know her mother acknowledges what happened." "Absolutely not," Patricia said immediately. "That's an admission of wrongdoing that could be used against her." "It's the truth," I said. "And Emma deserves to hear her mother admit it." Rachel was crying now, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. "You want to humiliate me. I want you to take responsibility for what you did. There's a difference." "You don't understand what it was like," Rachel said. "Being alone, wondering if you'd come home in a box. Lying awake at night terrified, trying to hold everything together, trying to be both parents to a little girl who just wanted her daddy. Do you have any idea what that does to a person?" "I do, actually," I said. "Because I was lying awake in a combat zone, wondering the same things. Except I was also wondering if my daughter still loved me, if she even remembered me. If my wife was going to serve me divorce papers over satellite phone, we both suffered, Rachel. But suffering doesn't justify what you did." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I know it doesn't. And I wish I could take it back. I wish I'd made different choices, but I can't. I can't undo 5 years of." She stopped. I was wrong. Okay? I was wrong to keep you from her. I was wrong to lie about the money. I was wrong to create that fake address. I did it because I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to hurt too. And instead I hurt Emma. I hurt all of us. The room went quiet. Patricia looked at her client like she'd just committed professional suicide. Marcus looked at me, eyebrows raised. Rachel had just admitted everything. Will you put that in writing? I asked. If it means Emma knows the truth. If it means we can stop fighting. Yes. Rachel looked at me finally. Really looked at me. But Mike, I need you to understand something. I do love Emma. Everything I did, however misguided, however wrong I thought I was protecting her. I thought if I could just erase you from our lives, she wouldn't have to hurt every time you chose the army over us. I never chose the army over her, I said. I chose to serve while being her father. Those things weren't mutually exclusive. You made them mutually exclusive. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Marcus started drafting the acknowledgement statement on his laptop. Patricia read over his shoulder, occasionally suggesting legal language that would protect Rachel from criminal liability while still admitting to the parental alienation. It took an hour of negotiation, of precise wording, of balancing truth with legal protection. Finally, we had something both sides could agree to. Rachel read it 3 times before signing, her hand shaking so badly the signature was barely legible. The statement was simple, devastating, and true. Rachel Morrison acknowledged that she had withheld information about Emma's school and medical matters from Michael Crawford, that she had misrepresented his efforts to maintain contact and visitation, that she had made public statements claiming financial abandonment while he was meeting his support obligations plus additional voluntary contributions, and that these actions had damaged Emma's relationship with her father. It didn't say parental alienation. Specifically, Patricia had fought hard against that phrase. But it didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves. What happens now? Rachel asked after signing. Now I transfer to Kentucky, I said. Emma and I rebuild our relationship, and you start being honest with her. About everything. About why you did what you did. About the fact that you were wrong. About all of it. And the GoFundMe? Rachel asked quietly. Are you going to tell people? Make me return the money? I'd thought about this. The money was technically obtained through fraud. The donors deserved to know they'd been lied to. Justice demanded exposure, demanded consequences, demanded that Rachel face public accountability. But Emma would have to live with those consequences too. Emma would have to face the community, knowing her mother had scammed them. Emma would have to carry that shame. No, I said finally. I'm not going to pursue that. But you are going to take it down. Delete the page. And if anyone asks, you're going to tell them the truth, that you were mistaken about my contributions, that I was supporting Emma all along. That's generous, Patricia said. That's for Emma, I corrected, not for Rachel. We finalized the custody agreement, signed documents, made copies, did all the bureaucratic dance of 2 people who used to love each other, legally separating their child into percentages and schedules. When it was done, when Patricia had packed up and left, Rachel lingered. Can I ask you something? She said. Marcus looked at me. I nodded. He left us alone. What? I asked. Do you hate me? For what I did? I considered the question. Did I hate her? The woman who'd kept me from my daughter for 5 years? The woman who'd lied, manipulated, stolen time I could never get back? No, I said, and I was surprised to find it was true. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I think what you did was unforgivable. But hate takes energy I don't have. I'm too busy trying to rebuild a relationship with my daughter to waste time hating you. Rachel nodded. She's not going to forgive me, is she? I don't know. Maybe eventually. But Rachel, you can't control that. You can't manipulate it, or manage it, or spin it. You just have to let Emma feel what she feels, and give her space to process it. How do I live with what I've done? I don't know. That's not my problem to solve. She left then, walking out of Marcus's office with her shoulders slumped, looking older than her 42 years. I watched her go, and felt nothing but exhaustion. Marcus came back in.
Well, that went better than expected.
She admitted everything. She did, probably because her lawyer told her any jury would crucify her if they saw the evidence. Better to admit it privately than have it come out in court. Marcus sat down. You did good, Mike. You got what you wanted. Joint custody. The truth on record. And you did it without destroying Rachel in the process. Doesn't feel like winning. Rarely does. But you know what? Emma's gonna see those documents. She's gonna read her mother's admission. She's going to know, officially and undeniably, that you never abandoned her. That's worth something. It was worth something. It was worth everything. I left Marcus's office and drove toward the park, the same park where Emma and I had sat yesterday. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to process the fact that it was over. That the legal battle I'd been preparing for had ended before it really began. That Rachel had simply surrendered. My phone buzzed. Can I see you? I heard Mom came home crying. Meet me at the park? 20 minutes. I waited on the same bench, watching the same ducks, feeling the same autumn sun. But something was different now. The custody was settled. The truth was acknowledged. The path forward was clear. When Emma arrived, I had the signed custody agreement waiting. Is it over? She asked. Yeah, sweetheart, it's over. She sat next to me, and I handed her the document, the custody modification, and beneath it, Rachel's statement of admission. Emma read it slowly. I watched her face as she absorbed each line, each acknowledgement, each admission that yes, her mother had lied, had kept us apart, had damaged our relationship deliberately. When she finished, she just sat there, holding the papers. She actually admitted it, Emma said finally. She did. Does this mean I can come to Kentucky? When you transfer? I pulled out the custody agreement, showed her the relevant sections. It means we have joint custody. You can spend time with me during the school year if you want. Summers, holidays, however much time you want, as long as it works with your school schedule. So I could finish senior year there? At a new school? If that's what you really want? After you've had time to think about it, to make sure it's not just about being angry at your mom, Emma looked at the lake. It's not just about being angry. It's about I want to know you. Really know you. Not just the dad on the phone. Not just the person sending money. I want to have breakfast with you and fight about curfew and watch movies and just be normal. Then we'll make that happen, however you want to structure it. She leaned against my shoulder. Thank you for fighting for me, for not giving up. I'll never give up on you, Emma. Never. We sat until the sun started setting, until the temperature dropped, and Emma's phone buzzed with messages she ignored. Sat until we'd both had enough silence to process that finally, the war was over. And maybe, just maybe, we could start rebuilding what Rachel had tried so hard to destroy. 3 weeks later, I was packing up a life I'd barely unpacked. The hotel room had become a strange kind of home, temporary, sterile, but mine in a way nothing had been for years. The uniforms in the closet, the boots by the door, the sparse collection of belongings that constituted everything I owned outside of a storage unit back at my previous base. I was folding my civilian clothes into my duffel when someone knocked. Emma had a key card. I'd given it to her the week after the custody agreement was signed, told her she could come by whenever she wanted. She'd been using it almost daily, showing up after school, doing homework at the desk while I worked on transfer paperwork, ordering room service that we'd eat while watching bad TV, and not talking about the elephant that was still in every room, her mother. Come in, I called. She walked in with 2 coffee cups and a backpack that looked heavier than usual. Got you a latte, the fancy kind with the foam art. You're spoiling me, I said, taking the cup. The foam had a leaf design that was already melting. What's in the backpack? Emma set it down with a thud. College stuff, applications, financial aid forms. All of it. I need help. Over the past 3 weeks, we'd been rebuilding our relationship in increments. Coffee in the mornings, before school, dinners at restaurants Emma chose. Long conversations about everything and nothing. Her friends, my deployments, the books she was reading, the nightmares I still had. We were learning each other again, filling in the gaps that 5 years had created. But we hadn't talked much about college. That felt like Rachel's territory still, something Emma and her mother had been working on together before everything exploded. "Your mom's not helping with this?" I asked carefully. Emma sat on the bed, pulling out folders and printouts. She offered, "But I don't want her help right now. Is that terrible?" "No, sweetheart. It's not terrible. It's honest." Rachel and Emma's relationship had fractured in the aftermath of the admission. They still lived in the same house. Emma had decided to finish the school year there, maintaining some semblance of normalcy for her senior year, but they were more like roommates than mother and daughter, polite, distant, careful not to trigger the landmines of unresolved hurt. David had officially moved out 2 weeks ago. Emma had cried about that too, another loss in a year full of them. But true to his word, he'd stayed in touch, texting Emma regularly, taking her to lunch once a week, maintaining the relationship even without the romantic connection to Rachel. "Michigan sent their financial aid package," Emma said, pulling out a thick envelope. "And I got accepted to 2 other schools too, Kentucky and Tennessee." I looked up sharply. "Kentucky?" "University of Kentucky. Lexington. It's 45 minutes from Fort Campbell." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I applied back in September, before everything happened. Didn't think I'd actually go there. Thought Michigan was always the plan. But now, I don't know what the plan is anymore." Emma spread the acceptance letters across the bed like tarot cards predicting different futures. "Michigan is the better school, better psychology program, better reputation. It's what I've been working toward for 4 years. But it's 12 hours away, and Tennessee is in-state tuition. And Kentucky is..." She stopped. "Kentucky is close to you." The weight of that statement settled between us. Emma was considering changing her entire life plan, giving up her dream school, altering the trajectory of her future, because she wanted to be near me. Part of me was elated. Part of me was terrified. "Emma, you can't make this decision based on me," I said. "Michigan is an incredible school. You've been working toward it forever. You can't give that up because..." "Because what? Because I want to actually know my father? Because I want to be able to have dinner with you more than twice a year? Because I spent 5 years thinking you didn't care and now I have a chance to make up for that? Because big life decisions shouldn't be reactions to trauma," I said gently. "This whole year has been traumatic. Finding out about your mother's lies, David leaving, your entire understanding of your childhood being turned upside down. You're in crisis mode. And people in crisis mode don't always make the best long-term decisions." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "So you don't want me close?" "That's not what I said. It's what it sounds like. I finally want to be near you, and you're telling me not to." I sat next to her on the bed, surrounded by acceptance letters and financial aid forms and the weight of impossible choices. "I want you close, more than anything. But I also want you to have the best possible future. And if that future is at Michigan, if that's where you'll get the best education and the best opportunities, then that's where you should go. We can still have a relationship. We can still talk every day, visit on breaks, make it work." Everyone says that. We'll make it work. We'll stay in touch. Then life happens, and people drift apart, and suddenly it's been 6 months since the last phone call. I'm not everyone. I've spent 5 years trying to stay connected to you despite impossible circumstances. You think I'm going to give up now that I actually can be present in your life?" Emma wiped her eyes. "What if I want both? What if I want Michigan and you? Then you go to Michigan and I come visit. I use my leave time to fly out there. We video chat every week. We text every day. We make it work because that's what families do." I picked up the Michigan acceptance letter. "But Emma, this is your dream. I've read the emails you sent me about Michigan when you were 15, before everything went to hell. You talked about their psychology program like some people talk about meeting celebrities. This has been your goal for years. Don't let what your mother did steal that from you too." She was quiet for a long time, staring at the acceptance letters. "I'm scared," she said finally. "I'm scared that if I go far away, I'll lose you again. That something will happen. and we'll drift apart and I'll look back and realize I chose wrong. Or you go to Kentucky because you're scared, and you resent me for it. You wonder what Michigan would have been like. You feel like you sacrificed your dreams for a relationship, and that breeds resentment over time. You sound like a therapist. I've been seeing one. I hadn't told Emma this yet, since I got stateside. VA therapist. Dealing with everything. The combat trauma, the divorce, missing your childhood, all of it. Emma looked at me with something like respect. That's actually really healthy. I'm trying to be healthier, trying to process things instead of just burying them and hoping they go away. You should probably do the same, honestly. A therapist who isn't connected to your mother, who can help you work through all of this. I've been thinking about it, Emma admitted. My school counselor recommended someone. It feels like admitting I'm broken. You're not broken, you're wounded. There's a difference. Broken can't be fixed. Wounded can heal. We sat with that for a moment. Outside, I could hear the sounds of the hotel doors closing, elevators dinging, the muffled conversations of other people's lives continuing without interruption. I'm going to apply to the honors program at Michigan, Emma said finally, and I'm going to accept their financial aid package. And I'm going to be terrified the entire time that I'm making a mistake. But I'm going to do it because, you're right, it's my dream, and I've let too many people steal my dreams already. Pride swelled in my chest. That's my girl. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll visit. That you'll actually show up when you say you will. That you won't let military stuff or distance or anything else get in the way. Because, Dad, I need to know you're solid. I need to know that when you say you'll be there, you will be. I promise, I said. Emma, I will move heaven and earth to be at your graduation, to help you move into your dorm, to visit during Parents' Weekend. I will not miss another major moment in your life. You have my word. She leaned against me, and I put my arm around her shoulders. We sat like that while the afternoon faded into evening, surrounded by the paperwork of her future. Both of us trying to believe that this time, things would be different. The news spread through Rachel's social circle like wildfire, though I never figured out exactly who lit the match. Maybe it was David, finally being honest with mutual friends about why he'd left. Maybe it was someone who'd seen the custody documents. Maybe it was Emma, tired of lying to protect her mother, finally telling the truth when someone asked why she seemed so distant. However it happened, by the 4th week of my extended leave, Rachel's carefully constructed narrative was disintegrating. I heard about it from Marcus first. One of the GoFundMe donors called my office, he said, asking if it was true that you'd been sending money all along, asking if Rachel had lied about the braces. What did you tell them? That I couldn't discuss client matters. But Mike, people are talking. Rachel's church friends, the people who donated, even some of Emma's teachers. The story's getting out. I'd wondered if this would happen. If the truth, once released, would take on a life of its own. Part of me had wanted it, had wanted everyone who'd judged me, who'd called me a deadbeat, who'd looked at Emma with pity because her father didn't care, to know they'd been wrong. But another part remembered what David had said. She's still Emma's mother. Should I do anything about it? I asked Marcus. Like what? Issue a press release? It's not your responsibility to manage Rachel's reputation. She made her choices. She's living with the consequences. He was right, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Emma was living with them too. That night, Emma came to the hotel looking shaken. Mrs. Patterson cornered me after school today, she said, dropping her backpack and collapsing into the desk chair. She was one of the people who donated to the GoFundMe. She asked me if it was true that you'd been sending money all along, if Mom had lied about needing help with my braces. What did you say? I said yes, because what else could I say? I'm not going to lie to protect her, not after everything. Emma's voice was tight. But Dad, you should have seen her face. She was so angry. She said she was going to ask for her money back. She said she felt betrayed. She was betrayed. Your mother lied to her. I know. But everyone's looking at me different now. Like I'm part of the scandal. Like I was in on it somehow. Emma's eyes were wet. Jenny's mom told her she can't hang out with me anymore. Said our family is too much drama, and she doesn't want Jenny getting involved. I felt anger flare hot and immediate. This was what I'd feared, that the consequences of Rachel's lies would splash onto Emma, that my daughter would pay the price for her mother's choices. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry you're dealing with this."
"It's not your fault."
"It's not yours either. You're just caught in the middle of a mess adults created."
Emma wiped her eyes.
"Mom's losing friends too. I heard her on the phone last night, crying, telling someone that it wasn't how it looked, that she'd been confused about the amounts. Nobody's believing her." I thought about Rachel sitting in that house alone now that David was gone, watching her social circle contract, facing the judgment of people who trusted her. Part of me felt vindicated. The larger part just felt sad.
"Do you want me to do something?" I asked. "I could put out a statement, say that this is between your mother and me, that the community shouldn't be taking sides, that Emma's not responsible for any of it. Would that help?"
"I don't know. Maybe. Maybe it would just make it worse."
Emma was quiet for a long time.
"She did this to herself," she said finally. "I know that's harsh, but it's true. She lied. She took money under false pretenses. She kept you away from me deliberately."
"And now, people know. That's not your fault. It's hers."
"But you're living with the consequences too."
"Yeah, but Dad, I'd rather live with consequences from the truth than keep living in her lies. Even if it's messy, even if it's hard, at least it's real."
There was a maturity in her voice that hadn't been there a month ago. Emma had grown up fast in the past few weeks, faster than she should have had to, but she was handling it with a strength that made me proud and heartbroken in equal measure.
"How much longer until you transfer?" Emma asked, changing the subject. 2 weeks. I report to Fort Campbell on the 15th.
"And you'll be 4 hours away."
4 hours. Close enough for weekend visits. Close enough to actually be present.
Emma nodded slowly.
"I've been thinking about the holidays. Thanksgiving's coming up. Would you want to spend it together? Maybe I could come to Kentucky, see your new place."
The question was loaded with hope and anxiety in equal measure. Thanksgiving was traditionally family time, which meant Emma was choosing to spend it with me instead of Rachel, choosing to create new traditions instead of maintaining old ones. "I'd love that," I said. "I'll probably be living in base housing initially, nothing fancy, but we can figure it out. Cook together, watch the game, just be normal." Normal sounds really good right now. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Jennifer Patterson. I donated $200 to Rachel's GoFundMe for Emma's braces. I would appreciate a conversation about what actually happened." I showed Emma the text. "People are reaching out to me now. Are you going to respond?" I thought about Jennifer Patterson and all the other donors who'd given money thinking they were helping a struggling single mother. They deserved to know the truth. They deserved an explanation. But giving them that explanation meant relitigating the entire situation. Meant more drama, more exposure, more consequences for Emma. "I don't know," I admitted. "What do you think?" Emma considered. I think if they ask, you should tell them the truth. Not to hurt Mom, but because they deserve to know. They gave money in good faith. They should know where it actually came from, even if it makes things harder for you at school." "Even then, I'm tired of protecting lies, Dad. I just want the truth out there, whatever happens after." So I responded to Jennifer Patterson, told her I'd been sending $2,500 monthly throughout the period in question, sent her screenshots of bank transfers with dates that overlapped with the GoFundMe, gave her Marcus's contact information if she wanted verification. Her response came quickly. "Thank you for being honest. I'm sorry we believed her lies about you." More texts followed over the next few days. More donors wanting answers. More friends of Rachel's trying to understand what had happened. I responded to each one honestly, but without editorial, just the facts, just the documentation, letting them draw their own conclusions. And with each conversation, I could feel Rachel's world shrinking. Could imagine her seeing former friends cross the street to avoid her, phone calls going unreturned, the social isolation that came from being exposed as a liar. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I just felt tired. On my last night before leaving for Kentucky, Emma and I went to dinner at the Italian place where I'd first shown her the evidence. Full circle, she'd said. Let's end where we began. We ordered the same pizza we hadn't eaten last time. This time we actually ate it. I've been thinking, Emma said, halfway through her second slice, about forgiveness. Yeah? I don't know if I can forgive Mom. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And I feel guilty about that. Like I should be more understanding, more compassionate. She's still my mother, you know?
You don't owe her forgiveness on any timeline but your own,
I said. Forgiveness isn't something you force. It's something that happens when you're ready, if you're ever ready. Are you ready to forgive her? I thought about Rachel, about the woman I'd married, the mother of my child, the person who'd spent 5 years systematically erasing me from Emma's life, about the admission she'd signed, the tears she'd cried, the consequences she was facing. I don't know, I said honestly. I'm working on it in therapy, trying to separate the anger from the hurt, from the grief, trying to understand why she did what she did without excusing it. It's a process. That's what my new therapist says too, that it's a process. Emma had started seeing Dr. Sarah Chen 2 weeks ago, no relation to Marcus, just a coincidence. She says I'm allowed to feel angry and sad and betrayed all at the same time. That emotions don't have to make sense.
She sounds smart.
She is. She's helping me figure out how to have a relationship with Mom that's honest instead of codependent. How to love her without letting her control the narrative anymore. Pride swelled in my chest. Emma was doing the work, the hard, painful work of healing from family trauma. She was going to therapy. She was setting boundaries. She was choosing herself instead of just trying to keep everyone else happy. I'm proud of you, I said. You're handling this better than most adults would. I'm not handling it. I'm surviving it. There's a difference. Survival is a valid strategy. We finished eating, paid the bill, walked out into the November cold that had finally arrived, turning autumn into the edges of winter. Emma pulled her jacket tighter. This is goodbye for now, she said. Not forever, just for now. Just for now, I agreed. I'll see you at Thanksgiving. 3 weeks. 3 weeks, Emma repeated. Then she hugged me tight and fierce, and full of 5 years of missed hugs. I love you, Dad. Thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for not giving up. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. And I promise this is different now. I promise I'm not going anywhere. She pulled back, wiping her eyes.
You better not, because I'm going to hold you to that promise.
Good. You should. I watched her get into her car, Rachel's old Honda that Emma had inherited when Rachel bought the BMW. Watched her drive away, back to the house that wasn't mine anymore. To the mother who'd spent 5 years lying. To the life she was trying to rebuild from the rubble of revealed truth. Then I went back to the hotel and finished packing. Tomorrow I'd drive to Kentucky. Tomorrow I'd start my new posting, my new life, my new chance at being the father Emma deserved. Tomorrow I'd begin the work of proving that this time, I meant every promise I'd made. But tonight, I sat in the hotel room and looked at the folder Marcus had given me all those weeks ago. The evidence that had changed everything. The receipts that had finally told the truth, louder than any lie. I didn't need them anymore. The truth was out. The custody was settled. Emma knew I'd never abandoned her. So I took them to the hotel parking lot and burned them in a metal trash can, watching 5 years of documentation turn to ash, watching the proof dissolve into smoke and memory. I didn't need receipts anymore. I had my daughter back. That was enough. The base housing apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, basic furniture, walls, the color of every military installation I'd ever lived in. But when Emma walked through the door on Thanksgiving morning, dragging a suitcase and wearing a Michigan hoodie, it became home. It's so beige, she said, looking around. Wait until you see the bathroom, even more beige. She laughed, a real laugh, not the cautious ones from a month ago. Where do you want me? I showed her the second bedroom. I'd bought new sheets, put up curtains, added a desk lamp I'd found at a thrift store. Not much, but it was hers. A space in my life that was officially, permanently hers. "Dad," Emma said, and her voice cracked. "You made me a room. Of course I made you a room. This is your home too, whenever you want it to be." She set down her suitcase and hugged me, and I held my daughter in the beige military apartment and felt wealthier than I'd ever felt in my life. We spent Thanksgiving cooking together, turkey from the commissary, stuffing from a box, everything slightly wrong but somehow perfect. Emma told me about school, about her friends, about college preparations. I told her about my new unit, about the soldiers I was training, about the strange adjustment of being stateside after so many years overseas. We didn't talk about Rachel until dinner, when Emma pushed her mashed potatoes around her plate and said, "Mom asked me to come home for Christmas." "What did you tell her?" "That I'd think about it. I haven't decided yet." Emma looked at me. "Is it okay if I'm not ready? To spend holidays with her like everything's normal?" "It's more than okay. You get to set the pace of that relationship now. Not her, not me, you." She's trying, I think. She joined a support group for divorced parents, started her own therapy. She even called me last week to apologize again. Really apologize, not just make excuses. That's good. That's progress. But I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. And I don't know when that stops. Maybe it doesn't stop completely. Maybe you just learn to carry it differently. Emma nodded slowly. Dr. Chen says the same thing. That healing isn't forgetting. It's learning to live with what happened without letting it define you. After dinner, we watched football and fell asleep on the couch. Emma's head on my shoulder, like when she was little. Like we'd never been apart. Like the 5 years of distance had been erased by 3 weeks of proximity. When I woke up at midnight, Emma was still there, her breathing steady and peaceful. I pulled a blanket over both of us and closed my eyes. Tomorrow she'd go back to finish her senior year. In January, I'd help her apply for final scholarships. In May, I'd watch her graduate. In August, I'd drive her to Michigan and help her move into her dorm. But tonight, she was here. She was home. And that was everything. May sunlight filtered through the high school gymnasium windows, catching dust motes and illumination. I sat in the third row, wearing my dress uniform, watching Emma fidget with her graduation cap among a sea of blue gowns. She'd spotted me immediately when I'd walked in, her face breaking into a smile that made the 8-hour drive from Fort Campbell worth every mile. She'd waved, small, discreet, but unmistakable. "You came. You're really here." Of course I was here. I'd promised. Rachel sat 4 rows behind me. I'd seen her come in alone, scanning the crowd, her face carefully neutral when she saw me. We'd nodded at each other, civil, distant, the relationship of 2 people who shared a daughter but nothing else anymore. David had texted Emma that morning, "Proud of you, kiddo, knock 'em dead." He'd kept his promise too, staying in Emma's life even after everything fell apart. The principal began calling names. I watched students cross the stage one by one, each one representing someone's pride, someone's sacrifice, someone's hope for the future. Emma Rachel Crawford. My daughter walked across that stage with her head high, her smile genuine, her entire future spread out before her like a map to territories unknown. She took her diploma, shook the principal's hand, and as she turned to leave the stage, she looked directly at me. And I was there to see it. Not a video sent months later, not a story told secondhand, not a moment I'd missed and could never reclaim. I was there, present, witnessing my daughter's achievement in real time, in person, the way fathers are supposed to. After the ceremony, after the obligatory photos and congratulations, Emma found me in the parking lot. "You came," she said, and I heard the wonder in her voice. The part of her that still couldn't quite believe I'd show up when I said I would. "I'll always come," I said. "That's the promise, remember?" She hugged me tight. Over her shoulder, I saw Rachel watching from a distance. For a moment, our eyes met. I saw regret there, grief for what she'd stolen, understanding, perhaps, of what she'd cost all of us. Then she looked away. and the moment passed. "Michigan next," Emma said, pulling back. "You're still coming to help me move in? Wouldn't miss it. And you'll visit? Once a month minimum. More if you'll tolerate me." Emma smiled, the real smile, the one that reached her eyes. "I'll tolerate you, Dad. I think I can manage that." We stood in that parking lot while families celebrated around us, while classmates made plans for parties and futures, while the sun painted everything gold and possible. 5 years ago, Rachel had tried to erase me from Emma's life. She'd built an architecture of lies so comprehensive that my daughter had grown up believing her father didn't care enough to stay. But lies eventually crumble under the weight of truth. And the truth documented, undeniable, impossible to ignore, had set us both free. I'd shown Emma the receipts, not to hurt Rachel, not to win some petty victory, but to prove that love sometimes looks like bank transfers and denied leave requests and emails sent into silence. That presence isn't always physical. That caring doesn't always look the way we expect. Emma knew now, knew I'd fought for her, knew I'd never stopped being her father, even when I was kept from being in her life. And that knowledge, that truth, was worth every painful revelation, every difficult conversation, every bridge burned with the past. "Ready to go celebrate?" I asked. Emma linked her arm through mine. "Ready." We walked toward the future together, father and daughter, finally and completely, with nothing but truth between us. The receipts had done their work. Now we could just be family.